She saved me. Those two words stopped the most feared man in New York City cold in his tracks. Adrian Romano, the man who had broken bones, buried enemies, and never once flinched in 38 years of brutal living, stood frozen in the doorway of a tiny apartment that smelled like soup and old wood, staring at his little sister, who was supposed to be a victim. And she was standing in front of a stranger, protecting her. If you've never seen a mafia boss completely lose his footing without a single punch being thrown, you're about to. Before we go further, if this is your first time here, please subscribe to our channel and follow this story all the way to the end. And drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. I want to see exactly how far this story travels. Clara Bennett had learned a long time ago that the city did not care about you. New York had a way of teaching that lesson over and over until it became something you stopped arguing with and just accepted, the way you accepted cold winters and broken radiators and the particular exhaustion that settled into your bones after a double shift at a restaurant where the manager called you by the wrong name for 3 years and never once corrected himself. Clara had stopped correcting him too. It wasn't worth the energy. Nothing about pushing back against small indignities was worth the energy when you had a 7-year-old son waiting at home and rent due on the 15th and exactly $62 in your checking account until Friday. She was 34 years old and she had learned to move through the world quietly. That was what she was doing at 12:17 in the morning on a Tuesday in February, moving quietly through the alley that cut between Delancey Street and her building on Forsyth, the shortcut she took every night after her shift ended, because it saved her 8 minutes, and 8 minutes was the difference between getting home before her neighbor, Mrs. Petrova, fell asleep on the couch, watching the shopping channel, and having to wake her up to retrieve her son, which Clara hated doing because Mrs. Petrova was 67 and arthritic and deserved her sleep more than almost anyone Clara could think of. The cold that night was the kind that didn't just sit on your skin. It went through you. It moved through your coat and your sweater and your uniform underneath, and found the spaces between your ribs, and settled there like it had been invited. Clara walked fast with her chin down and her bag pressed against her side. Inside it were 2 portions of chicken soup in plastic containers, a bread roll wrapped in foil that the cook had pressed into her hands without saying anything, because he was that kind of man, quiet and generous, in a way that asked nothing back, and a small piece of chocolate she had bought from the corner store 2 blocks from the restaurant because her son Marcus loved chocolate, and she loved the way his face looked when he saw it. She was thinking about his face when she heard it. Not a cry exactly. More like the sound a voice makes when it has run out of the strength to be a cry anymore. A thin sound, ragged at the edges. Coming from somewhere to her left, past the dumpster behind the cluster of cardboard that someone had stacked against the brick wall of the abandoned building on the corner. Clara stopped walking. The smart thing, the thing the city had taught her. The thing every woman who walked alone at night knew in her bones was to keep moving. Whatever was making that sound was not her problem. This city had sounds like that on every block. You learned to separate yourself from them or they would pull you under. Clara knew this. She believed it. She had lived by it for years. She stood there for 4 seconds. Then she heard it again. It was the specific quality of it that moved her feet before her mind agreed. Not pain exactly, not fear in the way an adult voice carries fear. It was smaller than that, more helpless. The kind of sound that comes from someone who has stopped expecting anyone to answer. Clara walked toward it. She found the girl wedged between the dumpster and the wall, half sitting and half collapsed against the brick, wearing a coat that had no business being outside in February, thin wool, the kind you'd wear in October if you were pushing it completely wrong for the temperature they were living in right now. The girl couldn't have been more than 22 or 23. Her hair was dark and matted against her face. Her lips were pale in a way that scared Clara immediately. Her hands, both of them wrapped around something, clutching it so tightly that her knuckles were white, even in the dark, were shaking steadily. "Hey," Clara said. She crouched down. "Hey, can you hear me?" The girl's eyes opened. Dark eyes, unfocused for a moment, then sharpening slowly like someone trying to climb up out of a very deep place. "I'm okay," the girl said. Her voice was almost nothing. You are not okay, Clara said, and she was already taking off her outer coat, the heavy one, the good one she'd had for 6 years, wrapping it around the girl's shoulders. How long have you been out here? I don't... The girl blinked. I don't know. Can you stand? I think... Don't think. Try. Clara got her arm around the girl's waist and pulled. The girl weighed almost nothing. That scared Clara too. She got her upright, steadied her when she swayed, shifted her own bag to her other shoulder, and kept her arm firm. My apartment is 4 minutes from here, Clara said. I'm going to walk you there. Keep moving your feet. I don't want to be trouble, the girl said. You're already trouble, Clara said. You're frozen and you're in an alley at midnight. The trouble already happened. Now we're just dealing with it. Keep moving. The girl kept moving. What Clara noticed in those 4 minutes was this: the girl held on to whatever was in her hand the entire time. She had shifted it when Clara put the coat around her, transferred it from one fist to the other, but she never let go. Even when her legs were unsteady and she needed both hands to brace herself against the wall of the stairwell in Clara's building, she kept it pressed against her chest like it was something alive that needed protecting. Clara did not ask about it. Not then. She got the girl inside. She sat her on the couch. She turned up the radiator even though she knew it would add to the gas bill, and the gas bill was already a problem. She went to the kitchen and heated one of the soup portions and brought it back with a glass of water and 2 of the crackers from the box in the cabinet. Drink the water first, she said. Slow. The girl drank. Her hands were still shaking, but less. What's your name? Clara asked. A pause. Long enough that Clara wondered if she was going to answer. Lily, the girl said finally. Okay, Lily, I'm Clara. You're safe here. My son is asleep in the bedroom, and I need to stay quiet so he stays that way. But other than that, there's nothing you need to worry about right now. You understand? Lily looked at her. Something moved across her face, not quite gratitude. Something more complicated than that. Something that looked almost like grief, mixed with disbelief, like she had stopped believing in the possibility of this specific moment, and was having trouble updating her understanding now that it was real. Why are you helping me? Lily asked. Clara thought about it honestly. Because you needed it, she said. And I was there. That's the whole reason. Lily's face did something complicated and private. She looked down at the soup. Eat, Clara said. We can talk later or not at all. Tonight you just need to get warm. It was after Lily had eaten and Clara had found her a dry sweater and an extra blanket and settled her on the couch with a pillow that Lily finally uncurled her fingers and looked at what she was holding. Clara saw it from across the room, a folded piece of paper, worn at the creases from being handled damp now from the cold and from Lily's grip. Lily stared at it for a long time without opening it. Then she held it out. You can read it, Lily said. It's the only thing I have left that's real. Clara crossed the room and sat on the edge of the coffee table. She took the paper, carefully unfolded it along its worn creases, and read what was written there. 3 words. That was all. Not your blood. Clara read it twice. Then she looked up at Lily. Lily was watching her with eyes that were dry now, exhausted past the point of tears. What does this mean? Clara asked quietly. It means exactly what it says, Lily said. I found it hidden inside a file. In my family's house. In a room that was supposed to be locked. She paused. I've been with them my whole life. I thought we were... She stopped. Started again. My brother. He raised me. He was 16 when he found me. He fought his own father to keep me. He told me that family was something you choose, not something you inherit. Her voice was very steady and very quiet, in the way that voices get when they have said the thing so many times inside their own head that saying it out loud has become almost clinical. But that note was in the file, and the file said I was adopted. And if I'm adopted, then everything he ever said to me might have just been what? Clara asked. Pity, Lily said. Obligation, something that looked like love from the outside but was actually just him being responsible, being decent, because someone had to be. She pressed her lips together. I couldn't stay and find out which one it was. Clara sat with that for a moment. Where does your brother think you are? She asked. Something shifted in Lily's expression, fast and then gone. Looking for me, she said. Probably, Clara repeated. He'll look, Lily said. He always looks. That's not... She exhaled. That's not the question. The question is what he finds when he does. Clara looked down at the 3 words on the paper. Not your blood. Can I ask you something? She said. Okay. This note. Do you know who wrote it? Lily shook her head. It was in the file. Inside it, not attached to anything. Like someone put it there deliberately. Like someone wanted me to find it. Did your brother know the file existed? He never mentioned it. A pause. But my brother doesn't mention a lot of things. What does your brother do? Clara asked. Another pause. Longer this time. He runs things, Lily said carefully. He has a lot of responsibilities. A lot of people who depend on him. Clara nodded slowly. She had lived in this city long enough to understand when someone was telling her something by not telling her something. Okay, she said. You can stay tonight. The couch is yours. In the morning, we can figure out the rest. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, Clara said, standing. I'm choosing to. There's a difference. Remember that. She turned off the lamp. She went to her bedroom. She lay in the dark for a long time, listening to the radiator knock and thinking about 3 words written on a piece of paper and the girl on her couch who had been carrying them alone in a February alley. And what kind of person put a note like that inside a family file where a young woman could find it? Not your blood. It wasn't a statement. Clara had read enough of the world to know that. It was a weapon. Someone had built it carefully and aimed it at someone specific, and it had landed exactly where it was meant to. The question was who? 3 miles north, in the building on the Upper West Side, where the lobby had a doorman and the elevator had a mirror and the apartment on the 14th floor had a view of the park that in any other context would have been called beautiful, Adrian Romano had not slept in 5 days. He was 41 years old. He was 6 feet and 2 inches tall. He had a scar on his left cheekbone from a knife fight he'd been in at 19 that he had long since stopped noticing in mirrors. He wore good suits and kept his hair cut close and had hands that were larger than most people expected, and moved with a deliberateness that people found either reassuring or alarming, depending on which side of the table they were sitting on. Right now, he was standing at the window of his living room in a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and a glass of water he hadn't drunk in his hand, watching the city below him. His phone was on the table behind him. It had rung 14 times in the last 3 hours. He had answered 11 of those calls. The 3 he hadn't answered were from people whose voices he didn't want to hear right now, because hearing them would mean accepting that they had nothing new to tell him, and not accepting that was the only thing keeping him functional. 5 days. Lily had been gone for 5 days. The first day he had assumed she was staying with a friend, the kind of spontaneous overnight that she did occasionally, that he never questioned because she was 22 years old, and he had made a point of not being the kind of brother who tracked her movements like a warden. He had left her a message. She hadn't called back. The second day he had called her friends. 3 of them. Then 6. Then everyone he could find a number for. Nobody had seen her. Nobody knew where she was. The third day, he had activated every resource available to him and understood for the first time in his adult life what it felt like to have power and have it mean nothing. He had men on every borough. He had cameras pulled. He had contacts in the NYPD and the Transit Authority and 3 private investigation firms on retainer. He had more information moving toward him than most law enforcement agencies could access. None of it was finding his sister. The 4th day, Victor Hale had come to him. Victor was 53, gray-haired, methodical, the kind of man who moved through rooms without ever seeming to arrive in them. He had been with the Romano organization for 16 years. He had been Adrian's right hand for 8. He was careful in the way that people who have survived a long time in dangerous places are careful, not cautious, not timid, but precise. Every word measured, every gesture deliberate. He had come to Adrian's office on the 4th day, and he had set a folder on the desk. "I need you to look at this," Victor had said. "I'm sorry. I wish I had something better to bring you." Adrian had opened the folder. Inside was surveillance footage screenshots time-stamped of a woman he didn't recognize. Dark coat. Purposeful movement. And next to those images, financial records, transactions he didn't understand at first, and then understood too well, and a name attached to them: Clara Bennett. "She's connected to an operation that moves people," Victor said. His voice was exactly even. "Not trafficking. More sophisticated than that. They specialize in extraction, taking people out of situations, sometimes for legitimate reasons, sometimes not." He paused. "The building she lives in is known to us. The alley behind it has been used before as a handoff point." Adrian stared at the images. "You're telling me someone hired this woman to take Lily?" "I'm telling you the evidence points that way," Victor said. "Who hired her, that's what I'm still working on." "Where does she live?" Victor told him. Adrian closed the folder. "Give me 24 hours, he said. "I want more before I move." "Of course," Victor said. After Victor left, Adrian had sat alone in his office for 2 hours. He had picked up the folder 3 times and set it down. He had tried to think clearly and found that he couldn't think clearly because the word Lily kept interrupting his thoughts the way a fire alarm interrupts everything else. Not as a concept, but as an image, as a sound, as a specific memory that kept surfacing without invitation. He was 16 years old and standing in the rain. Their family's house in Westchester had a gate at the end of a long driveway, and on the other side of that gate, in the November rain, was a child he had never seen before. Small. Maybe 3 years old. Maybe 4. Soaking wet. Sitting on the wet ground next to the gatepost with her knees pulled up and her arms wrapped around them, and her face down, not crying, which was somehow worse than if she had been crying, because the not crying meant she had already decided nobody was going to come. He had been coming home from school. He had seen her from the car. He had told the driver to stop. His father had been furious. "She has nothing to do with us," his father said. "Call social services. That's what they're for." "I'm not calling social services," Adrian said. He was 16 years old, and he had never in his life argued with his father about anything that mattered. He had argued about curfews and grades and which car he was allowed to drive, not about anything that mattered. "She's staying here. I'll take care of her." "You're a child yourself." "Then I'll figure it out," Adrian said. "But she's staying." His father looked at him for a long moment. Something in his father's face moved, not agreement exactly, but recognition. The recognition of someone who had just seen a line being drawn and understood that it was permanent. "Your choice," his father said. "Your responsibility." "Yes," Adrian said. That's right. He had walked back out to the gate. He had crouched down in the rain next to the little girl. She had looked up at him with dark eyes that were very serious and very old for a face that small. "What's your name?" he asked. She thought about it for a moment. "Lily," she said. "I'm Adrian," he said. "You're going to come inside now. You're going to get dry, and you're going to have something to eat. And then we're going to figure out what happens next." "Okay," Lily said. She stood up and took his hand. That was 25 years ago. Adrian came back to the present with the sensation of something tightening in his chest that he recognized as the closest thing to fear he ever allowed himself. He picked up his phone. He called Marcus Cole, his investigator, a man he trusted completely, and for good reason. "The woman," Adrian said. "Clara Bennett. What do you actually have on her?" "The same thing Victor gave you," Marcus said carefully, "which is, I've been looking at it, Adrian. Something doesn't sit right with me. Tell me." "The financial records," Marcus said. The transactions that are supposed to connect her to this network. They're there, but they're thin. And they appeared in the database in the last 72 hours, which means either the network is cleaning up behind itself or the records were put there, Adrian said. Silence on the line. I'm not saying that yet, Marcus said. I'm saying it's possible. I need more time. How much time? Give me until morning. I'll give you until midnight, Adrian said. Then I'm going to that apartment. He put the phone down. He stood at the window. He thought about the note Victor had mentioned, that there had been a note, something found with Lily, that investigators had recovered, and he tried to remember exactly what Victor had said about it. Victor had mentioned it quickly in passing, like a minor detail in a larger picture. He hadn't asked what it said. He called Victor. The note, Adrian said when Victor picked up. The one connected to Lily. What did it say? A pause. Brief. The kind of pause that if you weren't paying close attention you would miss entirely. 3 words, Victor said. Not your blood. Adrian said nothing. We think it's a message from whoever hired her, Victor said. Could be a threat. Could be a... Where did it come from? Adrian asked. The note. Where was it originally? We're still tracing that. Victor. Adrian, I want to be certain before I... Where did the note come from? Another pause. Inside the family archives, Victor said. There's a file, from when Lily was placed with the family. I found it when I was going through your father's old records 6 months ago. I wasn't sure whether to bring it to you. I should have. I'm sorry. Adrian held the phone very still. You found a file, he said. About Lily's origins. Yes? 6 months ago. Yes. And you didn't tell me. I was trying to figure out the right way to... Good night, Victor, Adrian said. He ended the call. He stood at the window for a long time. Not your blood. Someone had put that note in a file. Someone had known Lily well enough to know exactly what those words would do to her. Someone had wanted her to run. The question, the real question, the one that had been sitting underneath everything for 5 days and was only now surfacing fully, was not who had found Lily. It was who had wanted her gone. Marcus called back at 11:40. I pulled the surveillance footage from the alley behind the building, he said. The footage from the night Lily disappeared. And I pulled the footage from Clara Bennett's building, the actual building camera, not the external one. And Clara Bennett left for work at 3 in the afternoon, Marcus said. She arrived home at 12:22 in the morning. She was alone when she left. She came back not alone. He paused. She was helping someone walk. Someone who was clearly not okay. She got them inside the building. She didn't make any calls afterward. She didn't contact anyone. She ordered nothing. She opened no doors. He stopped again. Adrian, this woman found someone in an alley and brought them home. That's all the footage shows. Adrian closed his eyes. He opened them. What about the financial records? Clean, Marcus said. I mean completely clean. She works 2 shifts a week at a restaurant on Delancey. She makes $11 an hour plus tips. She has a son in 2nd grade at PS 142. She has a gas bill and a phone bill and a Netflix account. She hasn't canceled even though she probably should because the math doesn't work. The records Victor showed you, I went back to the source. They were inserted into the database Tuesday morning. 48 hours after Lily disappeared. The tightening in Adrian's chest spread. Someone put them there, Adrian said. Someone with access to systems that are very hard to access, Marcus said quietly. Someone who knew you'd be looking for that kind of connection. Adrian stood very still. Who else in the organization has access to those databases? He asked. Marcus didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was very careful. The short list or the long list? The short list. Another silence. Victor Hale is on the short list, Marcus said. Adrian said nothing. I want to be clear, Marcus said. I'm not. I know what you are and aren't saying, Adrian said. I'll handle it. Adrian. I'm going to the apartment, Adrian said. I need to see Lily. You need to go carefully, Marcus said. "If you go in like—" "I know how to walk into a room," Adrian said. He put on his coat. He brought 2 men with him. Not 4, not 6 too. Quietly. The kind of presence that communicated seriousness without broadcasting it. The building on Forsyth Street was exactly what Marcus had described: a walk-up, 5 floors, the kind of building that held its occupants together through sheer structural stubbornness, the heating doing its best, the lobby smelling like cooking oil and old carpet. Adrian walked up to the 3rd floor. He found apartment 3C. He knocked. There was a pause. Then footsteps. The door opened on a chain. One eye, brown. A woman's eye, guarded and direct. "Clara Bennett," Adrian said. "Who's asking?" she said. "My name is Adrian Romano," he said. "I'm looking for my sister." A longer pause. The eye studied him. "Your sister," she said. "Yes." "Does your sister know you're here?" The question stopped him. It was not the question he had expected. He had expected fear. He had expected deflection. He had not expected a direct counter. "No," he said. "Then hold on," Clara said. The door closed. He heard movement inside, quiet voices. 2 voices. He heard his name the first time. Not a word, but a feeling, the shape of it passing through a wall. Then he heard the second voice. A voice he hadn't heard in 5 days. "Adrian?" The door opened all the way. Clara Bennett was 34 years old, with dark circles under her eyes, and her hair pulled back, and a look on her face that was perfectly steady. Not afraid, not deferential. Steady in the way of someone who has decided what they are willing to do and what they are not, and is at complete peace with both. And standing just behind her, in a borrowed sweater that was too big for her, holding her own elbows, like she was trying to keep herself together at the seams, was Lily. For a full 3 seconds, Adrian couldn't move. Lily was alive. She was right there. She looked pale and tired, and like she had been through something, but she was standing. She was upright. She was real. Present. In front of him. He stepped forward. "Lily, wait." Her voice was quiet, but it stopped him immediately. "Before you say anything, before you do anything." She stepped in front of Clara. She looked at her brother with eyes that were serious and exhausted and absolutely clear. "She saved me," Lily said. "Whatever you think you know, whatever someone told you, she found me in an alley. She brought me here. She gave me food and a place to sleep, and she kept what I gave her to keep. And she never asked me for anything." She held his gaze. "So whatever you came here to do, you're not doing it to her. Do you understand me?" Adrian looked at his sister. He looked at the woman standing slightly behind her. He looked at the small apartment visible through the open door, the soup pot on the stove, the shoes by the door, the crayon drawing taped to the refrigerator that said, "Marcus," in a 7-year-old's handwriting. He looked at the woman who had opened the door on a chain and asked him whether his sister knew he was coming. He felt something shift inside him. Not the tightening. Something different. Something loosening. "Tell me what happened," he said quietly. Not to Clara. To Lily. From the beginning. Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped back from the door. "Come in," she said. "But you leave your men outside." He nodded at the 2 men in the hallway. They stepped back. Adrian Romano, the man feared by half of New York City, walked alone into a small apartment on the Lower East Side and sat down at a table that had 3 chairs and a coloring book pushed to one side and listened. Lily talked for 40 minutes. She told him about the file. She had been in the house in Westchester 2 weeks ago alone. Adrian had been in the city. Their father's old study had been left open because the cleaning staff had been in, and she had gone in to look for a book she remembered being on the shelf. She had found it. And then on her way out, she had noticed the cabinet in the corner, the old one with the dark wood and the brass handles, the one their father had kept locked her entire childhood, and that had remained locked after his death because nobody had thought to ask about it. Except on this particular afternoon, the cabinet was not locked. The cleaning staff. A key left in. She told herself she was going to close it. She told herself it was none of her business. She had her hand on the door handle. And then she opened it anyway. Inside were files, dozens of them. Old ones, some going back to their father's early years in business. She wasn't going to go through them. She picked up the first one on the top of the stack because something about the label caught her eye. Her name. Not a name she recognized as a case or a matter. Her name. Lily. Just that. She opened it. The documents inside were formal. Legal. The kind of thing you sign when you complete an official process. She had read enough of her brother's world to understand what she was looking at even before she read it fully. An adoption record. Her name. Her approximate age when placed. The date. The Romano family name as adopting family. Signed by a court. Official. Indisputable. And inside the file, loose, not attached to anything, folded once, not your blood. I couldn't breathe, Lily said. I couldn't. I took the file and I took the note and I left. I didn't leave a note. I didn't call anyone. I needed to get out of that house and think. I needed to be somewhere that wasn't connected to any of it. She had taken a train into the city. She had walked for hours. She had ended up in a hotel where she paid cash the bills she'd had in her bag. She had sat in the room and read the documents over and over. She had thought about calling Adrian and had not called Adrian. She had thought about what it meant, what all of it meant, and the more she thought about it, the more she arrived at the same place. She was not his real sister. She had never been his real sister. Everything he had ever done for her, every sacrifice, every fight with their father, every year of his life that he had redirected, because she was in it, had been done for someone who wasn't even actually his family. I knew he would never say that, Lily said. I knew if I called him he would tell me it didn't matter. I knew he would mean it. That's not the question. Then what's the question? Adrian asked. His voice was very quiet. The question is whether it should have mattered, Lily said. Whether there's a version of this where he could have had a different life if someone hadn't left me at that gate. Whether I cost him something he's never let himself know he lost. She looked at her hands. I couldn't ask him that, so I left. The hotel money ran out after 2 days. She had her phone, but she had turned it off. She knew Adrian would be tracking it, and she wasn't ready. She had her coat, but not enough layers. She had walked and sat in libraries, and eaten whatever she could afford, and when the money ran out entirely, she had been in that alley. She had been in the alley for 4 hours before Clara found her. When Lily finished talking, the apartment was very quiet. Clara was sitting at the far end of the table, her hands around a cup of coffee, not saying anything, not performing invisibility, but actually being still in the way of someone who understands when a room has things in it that don't belong to her. Adrian looked at his sister. Can I say something now? He asked. Lily looked at him. Okay. He leaned forward, his forearms on the table, his hands flat. The night I found you, he said at the gate. You were soaking wet. You had been sitting there long enough that your clothes were completely soaked through. You looked up at me, and you didn't cry, and you didn't beg. You just looked at me. He paused. I want you to think about what you felt in that moment. Not what you know now. What you felt. Lily said nothing. I want you to think about what I felt, he said, when I looked at you and decided. Not what the law said, or what my father said, or what any piece of paper in any cabinet said. What I decided. He reached across the table. He opened his hand. After a moment, Lily put her hand in his. I've known about the adoption file for 3 years, he said quietly. Lily went very still. Oh. Dad told me before he died, Adrian said. He told me everything, where you came from, what he signed. He wanted me to know so that if you ever found out on your own, I would be prepared. He held her hand. And I thought about telling you. I thought about it for a long time. And I decided not to, not because I wanted to hide anything from you, but because I couldn't figure out what it would add, what it would change, about us, about what we are to each other. His voice was completely even. Lily, you have been my sister for 25 years. The paper in that cabinet describes how you got here. It doesn't describe what you are. Those are two completely different things. Lily's eyes were very bright. Then the note, she said, not your blood, was put there by someone who wanted you to run, Adrian said. Someone who needed you away from me. He straightened. The thing in his face that had softened moved back toward something harder, something colder. And I am going to find out exactly who that was. He looked at Clara then. For the first time since entering the apartment directly, Clara met his gaze. She did not look away. She did not add anything. She simply sat with her coffee in her quiet apartment and looked back at him with the kind of steadiness that comes from having nothing to hide and knowing it. The note, Adrian said. Did you read it? Yes, Clara said. You kept it. It seemed important, Clara said. It seemed like the kind of thing that needed to stay in existence, in case someone needed proof of what it said and where it came from. Adrian studied her. You're a restaurant worker, he said, not an insult, a statement he was checking. Yes, Clara said. Single mother. Yes. You found my sister in an alley and you brought her home. Yes. Why? Clara looked at him. She thought about it the way she had thought about it when Lily asked her the same question honestly without performing anything. Because she needed it, she said, and I was there. A long silence. Then Adrian nodded. One nod. The kind that closes a chapter. I owe you a debt, he said. You don't owe me anything, Clara said. I disagree, he said. But we can argue about that later. He stood. He looked at his sister one more time, at her face, at the color returning to it, at the borrowed sweater that was too big at her hand, still on the table where he'd set it down. I have to go. Adrian, I know what the note means, he said. I know where it came from, and I know who put it there. He reached for his coat. Stay here tonight, both of you. My men will be outside. That's not necessary, Clara began. It is, he said. For my peace of mind. He looked at her again. Lock the door. He walked out. He walked down the 3 flights of stairs and through the lobby and out the front door into the February cold, and he stood on the sidewalk for a moment with his hands in his coat pockets, looking at nothing. Victor Hale had been with the Romano organization for 16 years. Victor Hale had found an adoption file. Victor Hale had inserted a note into that file, or ensured one was already there, and had then ensured the file was accessible, the cabinet unlocked on an afternoon when Lily was alone in the Westchester house. And then when Lily disappeared, Victor Hale had come to Adrian with a folder full of manufactured evidence pointing at an innocent woman. Adrian thought about the 16 years. He thought about every meeting, every decision, every moment of trust. He thought about the folder on the desk and Victor's measured voice and the carefully even pause before every answer. He thought about Lily in that alley for 4 hours. He thought about Clara Bennett, who made $11 an hour and had $62 in her checking account and had given his sister her coat and her couch and her soup without asking a single question about what it might cost her. He took out his phone. He called Marcus Cole. I need you to do something for me, he said, and I need you to be very careful about how you do it. What is it? I need you to get me a full recording of Victor Hale, Adrian said. Every call, every meeting, every move for the last 3 weeks. Pull everything. Silence. Adrian, Marcus said carefully, if you're saying what I think you're saying. I'm not saying anything yet, Adrian said. I'm listening, that's all. I'm going to listen very carefully to everything Victor says and does for the next 72 hours. His voice was flat and very precise. And then I'm going to act. He put the phone in his pocket. He looked up at the 3rd floor of the building. One window lit. Warm. He stood there for a moment longer than he needed to. Then he walked away into the dark, and the city closed around him. And somewhere behind him, in a small apartment with a coloring book on the table, and a crayon drawing that said Marcus on the refrigerator, his sister was alive and breathing and safe in a way that he had not yet begun to understand who to thank for, but was going to spend a very long time figuring out. Marcus Cole had been working for Adrian Romano for 11 years, and in that time, he had learned exactly two things about his employer that mattered above everything else. The first was that Adrian Romano did not lose his temper. Not really. Other men in his position threw things raised, their voices made decisions from the hot center of their anger, and paid for it later. Adrian went cold. The angrier he was, the quieter he became, and the quieter he became, the more precise every word and movement got, until he was operating with the kind of clarity that was almost frightening to witness from the outside. Marcus had seen it happen maybe a dozen times in 11 years. And every single time it happened, the person on the receiving end of that cold precision eventually wished they had encountered the version that threw things. The second thing Marcus had learned was that Adrian Romano was never wrong about people. Not never in the sense of infallible. He made mistakes, misjudgments, errors of timing. But about the fundamental character of a person, about whether someone was what they presented themselves to be or something else entirely, Adrian had a record that Marcus could not explain and had stopped trying to. It was not intuition exactly. It was more like patience. Adrian watched. He waited. He collected information the way other men collected money, and at some point the collection became complete, and he simply knew. Which was why when Marcus's phone rang at 2:17 in the morning and Adrian said, "Pull everything on Victor, 3 weeks, every call, every meeting, every transaction," Marcus did not say, "Are you sure?" He said, "Give me 6 hours," and he meant it. He pulled everything. What he found in those 6 hours did not surprise him the way it might have surprised someone else. What it did was confirm, with the particular chill of documented certainty, something he had been carrying unexamined at the back of his mind for longer than he wanted to admit. Victor Hale had been busy. Adrian had not gone home after leaving Forsyth Street. He had gone to his office in Midtown, a floor of a building that looked from the outside like any other corporate address that housed on paper a holdings company with a respectable portfolio and a compliance record that in practice was the nerve center of everything the Romano name touched. He sat at his desk. He drank black coffee. He read everything Marcus sent him as it came in piece by piece, and he read it without expression. At 4 in the morning, Marcus called. "Talk?" Adrian said. "The surveillance footage?" Marcus said. "From your father's house in Westchester. The exterior cameras, the driveway, the study window. I pulled 2 weeks of it. Victor was there 10 days ago." Adrian set down his coffee. "He was at the house," he said. "He used a key. He was inside for 47 minutes. He went directly to your father's study based on the angle of the interior camera, the one in the hallway. I can't see inside the room, but I can see him going in and coming out." A pause. He was carrying something when he left that he wasn't carrying when he arrived. Flat. About this size. Marcus sent a screenshot of still frame Victor in the hallway, something tucked under his arm. Thin. Rectangular. Folder-sized. "He took something from the cabinet," Adrian said. "Or he put something in it," Marcus said. "Or both." Adrian looked at the screenshot. "The cleaning crew," he said. "They were in the house 4 days ago." "I know. I checked the schedule. They had access to the study. Standard walkthrough. They wouldn't have noticed the cabinet." "But the key," Adrian said. "If Victor had the key for the cabinet, he could have left it in the lock deliberately," Marcus said. "Made it look like the cleaning crew was careless. Made it look like an accident that the cabinet was open that afternoon." Adrian processed this in silence. "He needed Lily to find the file," he said. "That's what it looks like. He knew she'd be at the house that afternoon. I checked her calendar. She had a standing appointment. She meets her friend Nina in Westchester every other Tuesday for lunch. She always goes to the house afterward. Victor has been to enough family dinners to know her routine." Adrian stood up from his desk. He moved to the window. Outside, the city was in that particular hour that belongs to nobody, too late for the night crowd, too early for the morning. The streets belonging temporarily to delivery trucks and insomniacs and pigeons. "He planned it," Adrian said. Not a question. "He planned it for a while," Marcus said. "There's more. His phone records. He has a number he calls from a burner. I traced it through the cell tower data. It's consistent, same number 11 times in the last 3 weeks. The number belongs to a man named Dario Voss. Does that name? Tell me. Low-level operator. He moves information mostly. Documents, records, digital files. He's known for insertion work, adding things to databases that weren't there before, or removing things that were. Adrian said nothing. The financial records on Clara Bennett, Marcus said carefully. The ones that were placed in the database 48 hours after Lily disappeared. Voss, Adrian said. I can't prove it yet, Marcus said. But the timing lines up. Victor calls Voss on the day Lily disappears. Voss is active on 2 specific databases that same night. 2 days later, the records appear. 2 days after that, Victor walks into your office with a folder. The silence that followed had a particular texture, the kind that forms when every piece of a thing you have been trying not to understand finally fits together, and there is nothing left to do but look at it. He needed me angry, Adrian said. Yes. He needed me moving in the wrong direction, fast, focused on the wrong person. Marcus stopped. What? Adrian asked. What else is there? Marcus took a breath. I went back further. Not 3 weeks, 3 months. I looked at every major decision you've made in the last quarter, acquisitions, partnerships, consolidations, and I cross-referenced them with Victor's movements, his calls, his meetings. And 5 deals, Marcus said. 5 deals that you personally approved based on information Victor provided. Assessments he gave you. Context he framed. A pause. I'm still working through the details, but 2 of those deals moved assets in directions that don't make obvious sense for the Romano organization. They make more sense if someone is positioning. Positioning for what? For transition, Marcus said. For a Romano organization that is managed differently, by different people. The word landed in the room. Adrian stood very still. Say it, he said. Victor Hale has been systematically repositioning Romano assets for the last 3 months, Marcus said. In preparation for a moment when you would either be too emotionally compromised to function or too damaged by scandal to maintain control. Lily was the trigger. If you went after Clara Bennett, if something happened to an innocent woman because of manufactured evidence, the consequences would have been significant. Legal exposure, reputation damage, the kind of thing that creates instability at the top and opportunity below. He was going to let me destroy myself, Adrian said. He was going to hand you the weapon and step back. A long silence. How long? Adrian said. To plan something this complete, at least a year, maybe longer. Adrian thought about a year. He thought about every meeting with Victor in the last year, the measured voice, the careful pauses, the particular way Victor held his hands when he was listening, which Adrian had always read as attentiveness, and now read as something else entirely. Does he know we're looking? Adrian asked. No, Marcus said. I've been careful. Keep it that way, Adrian said. I need 72 hours. I need to build something that holds, something that can't be walked back from. Understood, Marcus said. Adrian. What? Be careful, Marcus said. This is someone who has been thinking about this for a long time. He doesn't make impulsive moves. Neither do I, Adrian said. He ended the call. He stood at the window until the sky began to change, the particular gray that comes before color returns, and he thought about Victor Hale sitting across from him in this office for 16 years. And he thought about Lily in a February alley for 4 hours. And he thought about a woman who made $11 an hour, who had looked at a frozen stranger and made a different choice than Victor had counted on. Victor had planned for almost everything. He hadn't planned for Clara Bennett. Lily woke on Clara's couch at 7:15 to the sound of Marcus, Clara's son, 7 years old, standing in the kitchen doorway, staring at her with the complete, unfiltered curiosity of a child who has not yet learned to pretend he isn't looking. You slept on our couch, he said. I did, Lily said. Mom said you were sick last night. I was cold, Lily said. Your mom helped me. Marcus considered this. He was small for 7, with Clara's coloring and his own expression, which was very serious in the way of children who spend a lot of time around adults and have developed opinions. She does that, he said. She helped Mrs. Petrova carry her groceries up 4 floors last week, even though she had a blister. Your mom sounds like a good person, Lily said. She is, Marcus said, with the matter-of-fact certainty of someone stating a scientific principle. Do you want cereal? We have 2 kinds. Lily sat up. She felt the stiffness in her shoulders from the cold the night before, the particular ache of a body that had been through something and was filing its complaint with management. She felt also something else lighter fractionally than she had felt in 2 weeks. Not resolved, not fixed, but lighter. Sure, she said. What are the 2 kinds? One is good and one is healthy, Marcus said. Mom says they are the same thing. They are not. Lily smiled for the first time in she didn't know how many days. I'll take the good one. Clara came out of his bedroom 10 minutes later, dressed for work, even though it was her day off. Old habit she'd explained to Lily the night before she got dressed first thing regardless, because otherwise the day never properly started. She stopped when she saw Lily at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal, and her son beside her, explaining apparently at considerable length something about a movie he had watched. Something in Clara's face did a very small thing. Relief, maybe, or the particular satisfaction of a bet you didn't know you were making paying out. You slept, Clara said. Some, Lily said. How do you do that sleep, I mean, after everything? Practice will, Clara said. She poured herself coffee. And also Marcus is a very aggressive alarm clock, regardless of what happened the night before, so the question of whether to sleep eventually becomes moot. I am not aggressive, Marcus said. You stood next to my bed at 5:53 this morning and breathed on me until I woke up, Clara said. That is just standing, Marcus said. Lily watched them. This small domestic argument delivered over cereal and coffee in a kitchen with a crayon drawing on the refrigerator and shoes by the door and a stack of bills on the counter with a rubber band around them. And she felt something move through her that she couldn't immediately name. Not envy, exactly. Not sadness. Exactly, something that was adjacent to both and also separate from both. This was what ordinary looked like. She had grown up in a house with a long driveway and security at the gate, and rooms that were professionally cleaned, and a brother who controlled things that most people never knew were controlled. She had never wanted for anything material. She had also never had this specific texture, this smallness, this coffee and cereal and breathing on people reality of a life lived close to the ground. Can I ask you something? Lily said. Clara sat down. Okay. Last night, when Adrian came, she paused. You weren't afraid of him. Clara wrapped both hands around her mug. I've been managing difficult men my whole adult life, she said. Landlords, managers, my ex-husband. The ones that want you afraid are the dangerous ones. Your brother didn't want me afraid. What did he want? His sister back, Clara said simply. Everything else was just the wrapper around that. Lily looked down at her cereal. He told me he's known about the adoption for 3 years, she said. I heard, Clara said. He never said anything. No. I spent 2 weeks thinking. She stopped. I thought everything was different. I thought I had to rebuild everything. What I was to him. What I meant. Whether any of it. She shook her head. And the whole time he already knew, and it hadn't changed anything. Clara was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you what I see? She said. Lily looked up. I see a man who loves his sister, Clara said. And I see a young woman who got handed a weapon designed to make her doubt that. And the weapon almost worked. Not because it was true, it wasn't true, but because doubt is like that. It doesn't need truth. It just needs a crack. She paused. Someone gave you that crack deliberately. That's the thing that matters now. Not the adoption. Not the note. Who handed you that, and why? Lily stared at her. You figured that out, she said. Just from being here. I've had a lot of experience recognizing when someone's been handed a story designed to hurt them, Clara said. She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Marcus said, "Can I watch TV?" And the spell broke, and Clara said yes, and Lily ate her cereal, and outside the window, the city made its February morning sounds, and somewhere across it, Adrian Romano was pulling on a thread that was going to unravel 16 years of proximity and betrayal. And nobody in the kitchen on Forsyth Street knew yet exactly how far that unraveling was going to go. Victor Hale arrived at the Romano offices at 9:15, which was his standard time. He was never early, never late, always exactly on the quarter hour, in a way that had always read to Adrian as professionalism and now read as control. Victor liked to know where he was in the schedule of things. He liked the feeling of being precisely placed. Adrian met him in the conference room. Not his office. The conference room. A detail Victor would not miss. Victor noticed everything. "Sit down," Adrian said. Victor sat. He set his briefcase beside the chair. He looked at Adrian with an expression that was attentive and open and gave away nothing, because it never gave away anything, which was the thing Adrian was now examining with completely new equipment. "Any news on your end?" Adrian asked. "I spoke to 2 of our investigators this morning," Victor said. "On the Bennett situation. They're still developing the connection between her and—" "The Bennett situation is resolved," Adrian said. Victor's expression did not change. That was the tell a normal person's expression would have changed, even slightly, even a flicker of surprise or relief or curiosity. "Resolved," Victor said. "Lily came home this morning," Adrian said. It was not true. He had told Lily to stay at Clara's, but Victor didn't know that. "She's fine. She was staying with a friend, and her phone died, and she didn't realize people were looking." "I'm very relieved," Victor said. He said it perfectly. The tone was exactly right. Warm measured the appropriate calibration of a loyal employee receiving good news about his employer's family. "The woman," Adrian said. "Clara Bennett." "What about her?" "The evidence you brought me. The financial records." "I'd like to look at those again," Adrian said. "The originals. Can you get them for me today?" A pause. Half a second. Victor recovered it immediately, but Adrian had been watching for half-second pauses, and he caught it cleanly. "Of course," Victor said. "I'll have them to you this afternoon." "This morning would be better," Adrian said. "Of course," Victor said again. He reached for his briefcase. He appeared unhurried, which meant he was working to appear unhurried, and the work was visible only if you were looking for it. "Victor," Adrian said. Victor looked up. "Thank you," Adrian said, "for everything you did while Lily was missing. I know you went beyond." "She's family," Victor said. The word landed in the room, and neither of them acknowledged the particular resonance of it. "She is," Adrian said. "That's exactly right." Victor left. Adrian sat in the conference room for 30 seconds. Then he called Marcus. "He's going to move on the database records today," Adrian said. "He's going to try to clean them. Tell Voss the job is done. Make sure there's nothing left that points back." "How long do we have?" 2 hours, maybe less." "I'm ready," Marcus said. "Record everything," Adrian said. "Everything he does from the moment he leaves the building." "Done." "And Marcus." "Yeah." "Don't let Voss disappear." "Understood." Adrian put down the phone. He sat alone in the conference room and breathed slowly and thought about the next 72 hours and what they required and what they would cost. And then he stopped thinking about the cost and started thinking about the execution, because the cost was already set, and thinking about it further was just sentiment. He did not do sentiment. Not today. What Victor did over the next 4 hours was in its way a masterwork. Marcus documented every step. Victor left the Romano offices at 9:47. He took a car, not the company car, his own, to a coffee shop in Chelsea, which he had used as a meeting point before, which Marcus knew, because Marcus had been doing his job for 11 years, and part of his job was knowing where Victor went when he didn't want to be seen going there. At 10:15, Dario Voss walked in. Voss was 48, small and forgettable, in the way that people who specialize in not being noticed cultivate deliberately. He sat across from Victor and they talked for 22 minutes over coffee, and Marcus had two men in the room, neither of them visible as such, and audio that was clean enough to hear both sides of the conversation clearly. Victor told Voss that the situation had changed. He told him that the Romano girl was back and the pressure was off for now, but the records needed to disappear. He told him that the file insertion, the original one, the adoption documents, the note needed to be made untraceable. He said the note specifically. He said, the physical note, you understand, the thing we put in the file. Voss said he understood. Victor said there couldn't be any connection between the note and its origins. Where did it originally come from? Voss asked. I wrote it, Victor said. 3 words. Not your blood. Victor had written them. He had written them on a piece of paper, folded it, and placed it inside a file about a girl's adoption, and arranged for that girl to find it, and waited for it to do its work. Marcus had the recording in Adrian's hands by 11:30. Adrian listened to it once. He sat at his desk and played it through his earpiece, and listened to Victor Hale's careful, measured voice saying, I wrote it, and he felt something that was not quite anger, and not quite grief, but that lived in the neighborhood of both. 16 years. He thought about a conversation 8 years ago, Victor sitting across from him in this same building, Victor who had just lost his wife to cancer. Victor who had looked at Adrian across this desk with something in his face that had read as gratitude and been received as such, and Adrian had told him, you're not going anywhere, you're family. Family. The word had a different sound now. He called Marcus. Do we have enough? He said. Recording of him confessing to fabricating the physical note. Recording of him instructing Voss to destroy evidence. The cell records establishing the pattern of calls. The Westchester surveillance placing him at the house 10 days ago. The database activity logged against Voss's known technical signature. Marcus paused. We have enough. Then we're ready, Adrian said. When? Tonight, Adrian said. I want to do it tonight. Location. Adrian thought about it. He thought about what Victor would agree to without suspicion, where he would go willingly. What setting he would feel in control of. The warehouse on Pier 40, he said. Victor knows it. We've used it for meetings before. Tell him I want to do a debrief, that I want to go over everything related to Lily's disappearance now that she's home close. The loop, make sure there are no outstanding threads. He'll come, Marcus said. Yes, Adrian said, he will. What you saying? There was a thing that needed to happen before the warehouse. Adrian drove to Forsyth Street himself. No driver. No bodyguards, he sent them ahead to Pier 40 to set up. He parked and walked up to the 3rd floor and knocked on the door. Clara opened it. She had changed into different clothes. A dark sweater, her hair down now, and she looked at him with the same steady directness she had from the beginning. He's not here, she said. I know, Adrian said. I came to speak to you. She stepped back. He came in. Lily was on the couch with Marcus, the boy who had apparently appointed himself her guardian, and was sitting beside her reading from a comic book, while she listened with the concentrated attention of someone who needed something simple and was grateful it existed. Lily looked up. I need to talk to you, Adrian told her. What I'm going to do tonight, I want you to know. Lily put down the comic. Tell me. He told her. Not everything, not the operational details, not the specifics of how, but the what and the why. He told her about Victor. He told her about the note. He told her that the man who had sat at the Romano dinner table for 11 Christmases had written 3 words on a piece of paper and placed them where she would find them, and then waited for them to pull her life apart. The room was very quiet. Clara stood near the kitchen. She didn't insert herself. She listened. Lily sat very still. Her face went through several things. Adrian watched it happen without rushing it. This was the thing about his sister, that he had always understood that she needed to process at her own pace, and the worst thing you could do was try to manage the speed of it. "He knew me," Lily said finally. "He knew exactly what those words would do." "Yes. He came to our dinners. He asked me about school. She stopped. "He gave me a book for my birthday 2 years ago. He said it had been his wife's." "I know." "He was never actually kind," she said. "All of it was just positioning." "Yes," Adrian said. "That's exactly what it was." Lily looked at her hands. "What happens to him?" she asked. "He answers for it," Adrian said. "You're going to—" "No," he said. "Not the way you're thinking. He built a case against himself. All I did was collect it." He paused. "What happens to him is his own work. I'm just delivering it." Lily nodded slowly. Then she said something he hadn't expected. "Clara should know what's happening," she said. "She's been part of this from the beginning. She deserves to know." Adrian turned to look at Clara. Clara met his gaze. "The man who arranged for Lily to find that file," Adrian said, "also arranged for your name to be attached to evidence designed to make me believe you were responsible for her disappearance." Something moved in Clara's face, quickly and then controlled. "Someone built a case against me," she said. "Yes. Using records that don't—" "Fabricated," Adrian said. "All of it. Your records are clean. The fabrication is documented and will be destroyed." He looked at her steadily. "But I want you to understand that the danger that existed because of me, because of who I am, and what I do, and who wanted to use that against me, that danger touched your life without your consent. And I'm sorry for that." Clara was quiet for a moment. "Are you apologizing to me?" she said. "Yes," he said. "Okay," she said. It was not small, and it was not large. It was simply an acceptance, real and unceremonious, which was the only kind that meant anything. "Stay inside tonight," Adrian said. "Both of you." He looked at Lily. "I'll call you when it's done." "Adrian," Lily said. He turned. "Be careful," she said. It was what she always said. She had said it his whole adult life, every time he walked out a door toward something difficult. He had heard it so many times that it had become atmospheric ambient, something he registered without fully landing on. Tonight, he landed on it. "I always am," he said. "That's how I keep coming back." Yo, Victor arrived at Pier 40 at 8:15. He came alone, which was confidence or arrogance. Marcus said they were the same thing with different PR. He walked into the warehouse and saw Adrian, and he looked around the space with his quick, precise eyes cataloging, calculating, and found nothing alarming. Adrian was alone too, apparently. 2 chairs facing each other, a table, a lamp, the standard setup for a private debrief. Victor sat down. "Glad to have good news for once," Victor said. "How is she, Biwe?" "Resting," Adrian said. "She needed to sleep." "Of course." Victor crossed one leg over the other. "You said you wanted to go through everything. Close the loop." "Yes," Adrian said. "I want to understand the full timeline. From the beginning." "Of course," Victor said again. "Where do you want to start?" Adrian looked at him. He looked at the man he had trusted for 16 years. The good suit, the gray hair, the hands folded in the lap, with a steadiness that was professional and complete. The face that was open and attentive and gave away nothing. He thought about 3 words written on a piece of paper and placed inside a file, and left where a 22-year-old girl would find them alone. "The beginning," Adrian said, "is the cabinet in my father's study, and a key that was left in the lock." Victor didn't move. 1 second. 2. The professional stillness was still there, but something behind it had changed. Not visibly changed, but changed the way the temperature in a room changes before anyone has acknowledged it. "I'm not sure what you mean," Victor said. "I think you are," Adrian said. "Adrian." 10 days ago," Adrian said. 47 minutes. You left with something under your arm. Victor looked at him. The cameras in the hallway caught you, Adrian said. Coming in, going out. A pause. The cleaning crew, Victor began. Left the key in the cabinet because you put it there, Adrian said. After you'd already placed the note inside the file. The air in the warehouse settled. Victor uncrossed his legs. He placed both feet flat on the floor. He looked at Adrian with an expression that was doing a significant amount of work and doing it skillfully and doing it 1 second too late to matter. You've been busy, Victor said. So have you, Adrian said. Whatever you think you've... I know what I have, Adrian said. Would you like to know what it includes? Victor said nothing. Adrian told him. The Westchester surveillance, the cell records, the calls to Voss, the conversation in the Chelsea coffee shop. And at that one, something finally moved in Victor's face. Something that broke the professional surface and showed what was underneath. Which was not quite fear, and was not quite anger, and was a specific type of calculation that was only visible in a person when they realize the thing they have been calculating around no longer exists. 11 times, Adrian said. 11 calls. And this morning you told him to clean it, to make the note untraceable, to make sure there was nothing left that pointed back to you. He paused. There are only 2 people in that recording, Victor, and you told him you wrote it. The silence that followed was the kind that has a particular weight, not empty, but full of everything that had been said and everything that was never going to be unsaid. Victor looked at him for a long moment. You would have been destroyed by her, he said finally. Adrian said nothing. Not Lily specifically, Victor said. His voice had changed. The measured professional register was still there, but something else had come into it, something older, something that had been waiting a long time to be spoken. The attachment, the way you are with her. You have spent years making decisions through that filter. Every time something touched her, you adjusted. You recalibrated. He stopped, reorganized. You are in a position that requires you to be unmovable, untouchable, and you kept her right there at the center, right where anyone could reach you through her. Sooner or later, someone was going to use it against you in a way you couldn't recover from. So you used it first, Adrian said. I was protecting the organization. You were positioning yourself, Adrian said. You have been moving assets for 3 months. I have the records. Victor went very still. You wanted me compromised, Adrian said. Damaged, either by something I'd done to Clara Bennett or by the emotional fallout of losing Lily or both. You wanted me destabilized enough that stepping back would look like the sensible choice, and you would be right there, ready to manage the transition, ready to be the steady hand. Victor looked at him. The calculation was still happening. Adrian could see it, Victor working through what was documented and what wasn't, what could be defended and what couldn't, whether there was a version of this conversation he could still steer. We were family, Adrian said. The word landed differently than he had expected it to. Not as an accusation, as something more fundamental. Victor looked at him. You said that to me once, Adrian said. 8 years ago, in my office, after Maria died. You looked at me across my desk, and I told you that you weren't going anywhere, that you were family, and you... He stopped. What were you thinking? When I said that, Victor was quiet. Victor, I was thinking, Victor said slowly, that you meant it. I did mean it, Adrian said. And I thought... He stopped again. Something in the careful professional face cracked very slightly at the edge. I thought that might be the problem. That sentiment might be the problem. That an organization built on family and loyalty and on feeling was an organization that could be brought down by feeling. He looked at Adrian. I wasn't wrong about that. No, Adrian said. You weren't wrong about that. What you were wrong about is what the alternative looked like. He stood. You thought removing Lily removed the vulnerability. You thought if you could engineer my failure, what was left would be stronger, cleaner. He moved toward the door. You built your whole plan on the assumption that the people who love each other are the weak points. That kindness is a liability." He paused. "You underestimated what it is, which means you were working from a theory of people that was always wrong." He nodded at the shadows behind Victor. Two men stepped into the light. Victor looked at them. He looked back at Adrian. "The evidence is documented and held," Adrian said. "Marcus Cole has copies in 3 locations. What happens next is not my decision to make alone." "Adrian, what you did to Lily," Adrian said, "was deliberate and precise and designed to cause maximum damage to a person who never did anything to you. What you did to Clara Bennett was the same." He met Victor's eyes. "Those 2 things specifically are what I cannot move past. Everything else, the positioning, the assets, the ambition, I could understand. I don't forgive it, but I could understand it." He put on his coat. "What you did to them, I cannot." He walked to the door. He stopped. He did not turn around. "You told me she would be the thing that brought me down," he said. "A woman found frozen in an alley. A restaurant worker who makes $11 an hour. You think she was my weakness?" He paused. "She was the only thing in this entire situation that worked out the way it was supposed to." He walked out. The cold outside was still February sharp and complete, and it did something clarifying the way it always did, and Adrian stood on the pier and let it work on him for a moment before he took out his phone. He called Lily. She picked up on the second ring. "It's done," he said. A breath. Then, "Are you okay?" He thought about the question. He thought about 16 years. He thought about what it meant to trust someone and discover the trust had been a surface laid over something else entirely, something deliberate and cold and planning. "I will be," he said. "Are you?" "Ask me tomorrow," she said. "Tonight, I just want to hear your voice for a minute." "Okay," he said. He stood on the pier, and the city hummed around him, and Lily was quiet on the other end of the line, and he let a minute pass, and then another. And it was enough. It was for right now enough. The call ended at 9:47, and Lily sat with the phone in her hand for a long time after. Clara didn't ask. She was in the kitchen running water, doing the quiet work of a person who understands that some moments need to breathe without commentary. Marcus, Marcus, the 7-year-old who had appointed himself everyone's emotional barometer since approximately the moment he learned to walk, had fallen asleep on the far end of the couch 40 minutes ago, with his head on a folded blanket and one sock half off, which was how he always slept. And the particular piece of that, the smallness and the normality of it, was doing something to Lily that she couldn't quite articulate. She set the phone on the cushion beside her. "He's okay," she said. Not loudly. Just into the room. Clara turned off the water. "Good," she said. "Victor is—" Lily stopped. "He's being handled." "Okay," Clara said. "You're not going to ask me what that means." Clara came to the kitchen doorway and leaned against the frame with a dish towel over her shoulder. "It means what it means," she said. "And it means it's over. That's the part that matters tonight." Lily looked at her. "Aren't you afraid?" she said. "Of what you got pulled into, of what could have happened to you if Adrian had—" She couldn't finish it. The image was too specific. Adrian in this apartment with his 2 men having believed Victor's fabricated evidence, having believed that this woman was responsible for Lily's disappearance. The image of what that could have looked like was very clear and very awful, and Lily had been living with it at the back of her mind since last night when she had stepped in front of Clara and said, "He saved me," and not entirely known whether her body or her voice was going to hold. "I was afraid," Clara said, "when I heard him in the hallway. Yes, I was afraid." She said it matter-of-factly, without drama, the way she said most things. But being afraid doesn't mean you step aside. It means you acknowledge the thing, and then you decide what to do anyway. "Most people would have made a different choice," Lily said. "Most people weren't there," Clara said. "I was, so I made my choice." She pushed off from the doorframe. "You want tea? I'm making tea." "Yeah," Lily said. "Okay." Clara moved back into the kitchen, and Lily sat listening to the small sounds of water heating and cabinet doors, and the city outside doing its night business, and she thought about what it meant that this was where she had ended up. Not at a hotel. Not with a friend. In a tiny apartment on Forsyth Street, with a woman she had never met before 2 nights ago, whose son was asleep on the other end of her couch, who was making her tea at 10 o'clock at night, with the same completeness she brought to everything else. She thought about Victor Hale sitting at every Romano dinner she could remember. She thought about the way he had always spoken to her, careful, attentive, asking about school, and then about her plans, and then about her friends, with the measured interest of an adult who had decided that engaging with the young people in the room was the appropriate social behavior and was executing it correctly. She had always found him slightly exhausting without knowing why. Now she knew why. He had never been interested in her. He had been studying her, finding the seams, identifying exactly which thread, if pulled, would make her come apart. What Lily didn't know, what nobody had told her yet, was that Marcus Cole had been doing something else in the hours between Adrian's call from Pier 40 and the morning. He had been pulling the thread further. Because Marcus Cole was thorough in the way that people who have worked for cautious men for a long time become thorough. It was less a personality trait than an occupational reflex, the same way a surgeon checks the same things twice, not because they doubt themselves, but because the cost of not checking is too high. And something in the Victor file, in the 3 months of asset movements Adrian had asked him to analyze, had been nagging at him since he'd first seen it. 5 deals. That was what he had told Adrian. 5 deals that moved Romano assets in directions that didn't make obvious sense. By 4 in the morning, he had found a 6th. And the 6th one was different from the others. The others had been repositioning slow, careful, the kind of movement that could be explained after the fact as portfolio management or strategic rebalancing. The kind of thing that only looked like what it was if you were specifically looking. Deniable. Defensible in isolation. The 6th one was not deniable. It was a transfer. Direct. Significant. From a Romano holding account to a numbered account in a bank in Luxembourg that Marcus traced through 3 shell companies and a letterhead registered in the Cayman Islands before he found the name at the end of the chain. The name was not Victor Hale. Marcus sat with that for a long time. He read the documents again. He traced the chain again. He called a contact in Brussels at 5 in the morning, which was 11 in the morning there, and asked 2 careful questions, and listened to the answers, and sat with those 2. Then he called Adrian. "I need you to come in," he said. "Now," Adrian said. He sounded like a man who had not slept. "Now," Marcus said. "There's something you need to see that I can't explain over the phone." DJ Q. Adrian arrived at 37 minutes past 5. Marcus had printed the documents and laid them on the table in order the way Adrian liked source documents first, then analysis, then conclusion. He had also made coffee because he needed it, and because Adrian would need it, and because some conversations required that kind of infrastructure. Adrian sat down. He looked at the documents. He went through them in the order they were laid out without speaking, reading each one at the pace. He read things which was faster than it looked. He reached the last page. He sat back. "Tell me the name again," he said. "Raymond Cross," Marcus said. "The attorney." Yes. Raymond Cross was 61 years old. He had been the Romano family's legal counsel for 22 years. He had come in 2 years before. Victor had been there longer than anyone except Adrian himself, had handled the legal architecture of the Romano organization through 3 decades of complexity and transition, and had never in 22 years given Adrian a single reason for concern. "Raymond and Victor," Adrian said. "The account is in Raymond's name," Marcus said. "The transfer was authorized through a document chain that has Victor's fingerprints on the initiation and Raymond's on the receiving end." "They were working together," Adrian said. "It looks that way. Victor was the operation. I think Raymond was the destination. If Victor's plan had worked, if he had managed to destabilize you enough to take control, Raymond would have been the legal mechanism for formalizing it. Restructuring, transfers of authority, the paperwork for whatever came next." Marcus paused. Victor couldn't do what he was planning to do without someone who controlled the legal infrastructure. without someone who could make it look legitimate from the outside. Adrian looked at the documents. Victor couldn't take over the Romano organization by force, he said, working through it out loud. He had to do it through architecture, through paperwork, through a structure that would look from the outside like an orderly transition. And Raymond was the architect, Marcus said. Does Raymond know it's over? Not yet, Marcus said. He wouldn't know about last night unless Victor contacted him. And I have Victor's phone under surveillance. He hasn't made any calls since the warehouse. Adrian stood. He picked up his coffee. He moved to the window. Outside, the city was doing what it did every morning, reassembling itself from the pieces of the night, the delivery trucks and the dog walkers and the first early commuters moving through the cold with their coffee cups and their specific cellular knowledge of where they needed to be. It looked from this height completely ordinary. This was the thing about the city that Adrian had always found both comforting and slightly horrifying. It did not know and did not care what had happened inside it the night before. It just kept going. Raymond has been to our house, Adrian said. Christmas. Every year for 22 years. I know, Marcus said. He was at my father's funeral. I know. He sat in the front row, Adrian said. He put his hand on my shoulder afterward. He said, he stopped. He let that go. What does the account look like? What's been transferred? Marcus told him the number. Adrian was quiet for a moment. That's significant, he said. It's an exit fund, Marcus said, or an establishment fund, enough to set up whatever they were planning to set up once the Romano name was out of the picture. He paused. Adrian, they weren't just positioning. They were planning to walk away with the architecture, the legal structure, the accounts, the connections. Leave you with the name and take everything underneath it. Adrian absorbed this. He thought about Raymond Cross sitting across from him in the legal offices on Park Avenue, reviewing documents, explaining structures, the measured voice of a man with 22 years of institutional knowledge and a precise and complete understanding of every mechanism that held the Romano organization together. He thought about how much Raymond knew, how many decisions had been run through that office, how many structural choices had been made based on Raymond's counsel, how many of those choices had been shaped subtly, incrementally, to serve a plan that was 15 years in the making. He was guiding me, Adrian said. The legal advice, the structural recommendations, all of it was. I can't prove the full extent, Marcus said carefully. Not yet. But the account transfer proves the connection, and the connection proves the coordination. He met Adrian's eyes. Victor was never operating alone. The room shifted, not physically, but the story Adrian had been carrying since midnight, the story of Victor, of betrayal, of a trusted advisor who had reoriented itself into something larger and older and more deliberate. Victor had not been building something on his own. He and Raymond had been building it together, for a very long time. Clara's morning started at 6:30, regardless of what had happened the night before, because Marcus's internal clock was impervious to external circumstances, and his school day started at 8, and the bus came at 7:42, and there was a system, and the system did not negotiate. She was in the kitchen making oatmeal when Lily appeared in the doorway, hair disheveled, wearing the borrowed sweater, still looking like someone who had slept in pieces. Some real rest, some not. You should still be sleeping, Clara said. I couldn't, Lily said. She came to the kitchen and sat at the table. How do you do that? Get up and just do the thing. After everything. The thing doesn't wait, Clara said. And honestly, the thing is good for you. It gives your brain somewhere to go that isn't wherever it keeps going on its own. She set a bowl in front of Lily. Oatmeal. I'm fine, you don't have to. You spent 2 weeks not eating properly, Clara said. Eat the oatmeal. Lily ate the oatmeal. Marcus came out of his bedroom at 6:50, dressed incorrectly, shirt on, backward shoes on the wrong feet, utterly confident. Clara corrected these things without commentary, while he told Lily about something that had happened at school involving a substitute teacher and a papier-mâché project that had gone structurally wrong in a way he found deeply satisfying. Lily listened with an attention that was not performed. She was genuinely invested in the fate of the papier-mâché volcano. She asked follow-up questions. Marcus escalated his account in response to the attention the way children do when they find an audience that is really present. Clara watched this while she packed his bag and felt something she wasn't going to name directly. Something in the vicinity of gratitude and something in the vicinity of grief, for reasons she understood, but wasn't going to unpack before 7 in the morning in her kitchen. After Marcus left for the bus, the apartment was very quiet. Lily had her hands around her bowl. She was looking at the table. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "You can ask," Clara said. "I might not answer." "Your son's father," Lily said. "Where is he?" A pause. "Gone," Clara said. Not dramatically, just gone. He left when Marcus was 8 months old, decided it was more than he wanted to manage. She said it without bitterness, which was something she had worked on for a long time and had mostly achieved. "He sends money occasionally. Not consistently. Not enough." "I'm sorry," Lily said. "Don't be," Clara said. "He made the right choice for himself. He would have been a disaster as a daily presence. What I have is better than what I would have had with him here." She picked up her coffee. "I figured that out around when Marcus was 2. Took me a while, but I got there." Lily looked at her. "You're the most you just accept things," she said. "You take what is there and you work with it. You don't seem angry." "I get angry," Clara said. "I just don't stay there. There's a difference." She sat down across from Lily. "Anger is useful for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, it's just expensive." Lily almost smiled. "Where did you get that?" "From being poor and tired and needing to solve problems," Clara said. "You develop efficient emotions. You don't have the bandwidth for the other kind." They sat in that for a moment. The radiator knocked. Outside, the city noise filtered up: a bus, a car horn, someone calling to someone in the particular flat vowel accent of a specific type of New Yorker. "Victor spent 16 years next to my brother," Lily said. "He knew everything. He was there for everything." She was quiet. How does someone do that? How do you sit next to a person for 16 years and plan to take everything from them? Clara thought about it honestly. "I think some people," she said slowly, "see the people closest to them not as people, but as positions, as resources. And they're patient in a way that almost looks like loyalty from the outside, because they know that patience pays out." She paused. "The difference between a patient person and a loyal person is what they're waiting for." Lily looked at her. "You're very smart," she said. "I'm observant," Clara said. "It reads as the same thing to people who aren't paying attention." Tag. Adrian called at 9:15. Not Lily, Clara. She saw his name on the screen. She had saved it. She wasn't sure when exactly, somewhere in the night, and she looked at it for a moment before she answered. "Yes?" she said. "There's something I need to tell you," Adrian said. "And I need to tell you in person. Can I come by this morning?" "I'm here," Clara said. 20 minutes, he said. "Is Lily there?" "Yes." "Good." A pause. "Clara?" "What?" "Thank you for picking up." She looked at the phone after he ended the call, and then she put it down and went to tell Lily her brother was coming. He arrived in 19 minutes, which meant he had been close already. He came alone. This time, no men in the hallway, just Adrian Romano in a dark coat with the particular look on his face of someone who has not slept and has processed something significant and is now carrying both of those things simultaneously while trying to function. He sat at the table. He told them about Raymond Cross. Lily heard it with an expression that went through several phases. First the processing look, the same one from the night before, that private interior movement, then something harder and more specific. A specific anger that was different from what she had felt about Victor, because Raymond Cross had been a different texture of presence in her life. Not at every dinner. Not at every gathering. But at the significant ones. The funeral. The birthday when she had turned 18, and Adrian had thrown a dinner that was small and specific and important, and Raymond had been there, had given her a book that he said had belonged to a client of his who had passed a woman who had loved it, and Lily had kept it because she had found it beautiful. She thought about the book on her shelf in Westchester. She thought about where it had actually come from, and what the giving of it had actually meant, and whether any of it had been anything other than maintenance, keeping the relationship warm, keeping her easy. "He was managing me too," she said. "Yes," Adrian said. "All the dinners, the presents, the things he said." She stopped. "He knew who I was. He knew about the adoption. He knew Victor was going to use it against me. And he kept having dinner with us, kept being—" "Yes," Adrian said. "How did they even—" She stopped again. "How does something like that start? How do you sit across from someone you respect and say, 'Let's take everything he has'?" Adrian looked at her. "I don't know," he said. "I've been asking myself that since 5 this morning. I haven't found an answer." "Because there isn't one," Clara said quietly. Both of them looked at her. She had been sitting at the end of the table without saying anything, the way she did, not absent, not withdrawn, just giving the room what it needed without filling it unnecessarily. "There's no answer that makes sense from the outside," she said, "because you're trying to apply your framework to their decision, and they don't have your framework. Some people look at a person they've known for 20 years and see a resource they haven't fully collected yet." She paused. "The explanation isn't complicated. The explaining it in a way that feels human is what's hard." Lily was looking at her. Adrian was looking at her too, with an expression Lily recognized, the one he got when someone said a thing that realigned something he had been holding crooked. "Raymond has no idea yet," Adrian said, pulling himself back to the practical. "Victor hasn't contacted him. I have until Raymond arrives at his office this morning before he knows anything has changed." "What are you going to do?" Lily asked. Adrian straightened. "I'm going to go see him," he said. "I'm going to let him tell me how he explains it. I'm going to listen to exactly how a man who has had 22 years to construct his reasons does that. And then, Adrian said, I'm going to show him what Marcus found. And what happens after that is his choice to make." Lily watched him. "You're giving him a chance to explain himself." "I'm giving him enough rope," Adrian said. "Those aren't the same thing." He stood. He put his coat on. He did the thing he had done the night before, paused at the door, looked at the two of them at the table, and had a moment that was visible on his face for exactly a second before it became something else. "I'll be back," he said. "Adrian," Clara said. He turned. "Be certain," she said. "Before you go in. Be completely certain of everything you're carrying. Don't give him anything he can argue with." Adrian looked at her. Something in his expression shifted. "You've done this before," he said. "Not this specifically, but something like it." Clara met his gaze. "I testified at a hearing once," she said, "for a food safety violation. Against the restaurant I worked at. It was not a large thing in the world. But in my world, it was enormous. And the lawyer on the other side was very good, and I was very afraid." She paused. "What I learned was that the only thing that can't be argued with is documentation. Feelings can be questioned. Memory can be questioned. Paper that says what it says in your hand before you speak that can't be questioned." Adrian nodded slowly. "I have the paper," he said. "Then you're ready," she said. Kid. Raymond Cross had an office on Park Avenue that communicated by its very dimensions that he had been succeeding for a long time. The kind of space that is curated to suggest permanence, dark wood bookshelves that held things that had actually been red diplomas and certificates, placed with deliberate understatement at the periphery rather than the center. Adrian arrived at 10. Raymond was behind his desk. He had the look of a man who had been at work since 7. Organized present papers already sorted and referenced a coffee half drunk at his left elbow. He looked up when Adrian entered, and his face did what it always did, a practiced warmth, a genuine seeming pleasure. The ease of a man performing ease so well it had become indistinguishable from the real thing. "Adrian?" he said, starting to stand. Sit down, Adrian said. A fractional pause. Raymond sat. Adrian sat across from him. He did not put the documents on the desk yet. He looked at Raymond Cross for a long moment, at the face he had been looking at for 22 years. The gray at the temples, now completely gray. The hands on the desk that had guided countless decisions. The eyes that were reading him right now with professional precision. Tell me something, Adrian said. Raymond waited. When did it start? Adrian said. Was it always there from the beginning, or did it develop? Raymond's expression shifted barely by millimeters, a professional adjustment. I'm not sure what you're... Raymond, Adrian said. Quiet, completely level. Victor is in a room with everything documented against him. He spent last night understanding exactly how complete it is. He paused. I'm not here to do the same thing to you. I'm here to ask you a question, and I would like the answer from you directly, because 22 years deserves that. It deserves one real conversation. He looked at him. When did it start? The clock on Raymond's desk was audible in the silence. A real one, not digital. A clock that had probably been there for 20 years, and that Adrian had never thought about before, and was now registering as the only sound in the room. Raymond's hands on the desk did not move. His posture did not change. But something behind his eyes made a decision. 8 years ago, Raymond said. Adrian breathed. After your father died, Raymond continued. I had spent 22 years doing this, managing the legal architecture for an organization that operated outside every framework I was trained in. Every year I stayed, I made the choice to stay again, and every year the choice cost more. And after your father died, I looked at what was ahead of me and I thought... He stopped, started again. I thought I needed an exit, something clean, something that would let me... So you built one using what was mine, Adrian said. Raymond looked at him. The advice you gave me, Adrian said. The structural recommendations, 8 years of legal counsel. How much of it was designed to serve what you were building rather than what I was? Raymond was quiet. Raymond, Adrian said. This is the one conversation. There won't be another. Raymond looked at his hands. For the first time in 22 years, he looked like something other than a composed professional. He looked like a man who was 61 years old and had spent 8 of those years carrying something that had required continuous management, and who was now in some way he hadn't expected and couldn't fully articulate, relieved to put it down. Not all of it, he said. Most of it was sound, genuinely sound. I didn't sabotage your organization. It wasn't destruction. It was redirection, selected. A small number of decisions over a long time that created structures I could access, Adrian said. Yes. With Victor? Yes. When did you bring Victor in? 5 years ago? Raymond said. He came to me. Adrian's eyes sharpened. He came to you. He had been thinking about it independently, Raymond said. He had identified the same vulnerability I had. The same opportunity. He needed the legal mechanism, and I needed someone who could manage the operational side. He met Adrian's eyes. We didn't find each other because we were alike. We found each other because we were both already there. That landed differently than Adrian expected. 2 people independently arriving at the same place. Not a conspiracy in the sense of 2 men in a room deciding. A convergence. 2 separate calculations that intersected, which meant the thing they had identified, the vulnerability they had both seen, was real. They had each found it on their own. That was a different kind of information. Lily, Adrian said. Raymond looked at him. Was she part of your calculation? Adrian said. Specifically. Raymond was quiet for a moment. Victor's operation, he said carefully. The approach to Lily, that was Victor. I knew about it. I had concerns. But you didn't stop it. A pause. No, Raymond said. I didn't stop it. The clock moved through its seconds. She's 22 years old, Adrian said. She spent 2 weeks thinking she didn't belong to the only family she's ever known. She spent 4 hours alone in an alley in February. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You had concerns, and you didn't stop it. Raymond looked at his desk. No, he said again. Quieter. Adrian put the documents on the desk. He set them down with the particular deliberateness of someone placing something irreversible. These are copies, he said. The originals are held by Marcus in 3 locations, plus one set with an independent attorney whose name is not connected to the Romano organization. He let Raymond look at the top document. Let him understand what it was. What happens with these is a decision I haven't fully made. That decision has several possible shapes, and which shape it takes depends on the next 60 minutes. Raymond looked up from the documents. I want the full list, Adrian said. Every decision, every recommendation, every structural choice you made in 8 years that served what you were building. I want dates, documents, and your explanation of the intent. Everything. He paused. I want it in this room today in writing with your signature. Raymond stared at him. That's the exchange, Adrian said. Not forgiveness, not immunity, clarity. For both of us. I need to know exactly what was shaped and what wasn't, so I can know what I'm actually standing on. He met Raymond's eyes. And you need to tell someone the truth about 8 years of it before it becomes the only story left of you. The clock in the room counted out a full 30 seconds. Then, Raymond Cross reached into his desk drawer and took out a pen. He pulled the first blank sheet of paper from the stack beside his monitor. He began. It took 4 hours. Adrian sat in that office for 4 hours and watched Raymond Cross write out in a careful, legal hand that had been trained for precision 8 years of quiet betrayal. He did not interrupt. He did not ask follow-up questions until the narrative demanded it. He let the thing unfold at the pace it needed to unfold because he understood that what was happening was not a confession, in any legal sense. It was something older than that, something almost geological. The slow movement of a weight that had been pressing down for a very long time. What he learned in those 4 hours was both more and less than he had expected. Less because the structural damage was narrower than he had feared 5 decisions in 8 years, not the wholesale reshaping he had imagined at 5 in the morning when the documents first landed on the table. The Romano organization had not been built on a rotten foundation. It had been built, as he had always believed, on choices that were mostly sound. There were seams. There were places where the architecture had been subtly bent. But it was not structural failure. More because what Raymond revealed about the conversations with Victor about the specific detailed analysis the two of them had done repeatedly over 5 years of Adrian's decision-making patterns and vulnerabilities was exhaustive in a way that was uncomfortable, not because it was wrong, but because some of it was right. You said I made decisions through an emotional filter, Adrian said near the end. Raymond looked up from the page. Victor said that, Adrian clarified. Last night. He said my attachment to Lily affected my judgment, that I recalibrated decisions because of her. He paused. In 5 years of conversations with him about my operation, did you come to the same conclusion? Raymond was quiet for a moment. Yes, he said. Specifically about Lily. Specifically about her, Raymond said. And more broadly about loyalty as a governing value. You weight loyalty very heavily, in ways that sometimes cost you. He met Adrian's gaze. Victor believed that was a fatal weakness. I thought it was something different. Adrian waited. I thought it was the thing that made you last, Raymond said. As long as it had been, in this business, in this city. I thought the loyalty was the architecture, not the vulnerability. He looked down. I still think that. Even now. But you built a plan that exploited it anyway, Adrian said. Yes. Because thinking something and acting on it are different, Adrian said. Raymond said nothing. That's the answer, Adrian said. That's the one you were looking for when you tried to explain it. You knew what was true, and you built something that contradicted it. And that's not a political calculation or an organizational strategy. That's a choice about who you are. He pushed his chair back. I think you've known that for a while. I think that's why you looked relieved when I walked in. Raymond's pen stopped on the page. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Adrian was back on Forsyth Street by 4 in the afternoon. He knocked. Clara opened the door. He came in. Lily was at the kitchen table with a cup of something, and she looked at him when he came in, and whatever she saw in his face made her exhale a long, slow release, like a person who has been holding a specific tension in their body for hours, and finally found permission to let it go. "Sit down," Clara said. It was not a question. He sat. She put a plate in front of him. It was pasta, simple, straightforward, the kind of thing you make when someone needs to eat, and the eating is the point, and nothing about it is supposed to be impressive. He ate. Lily watched him and didn't speak, which was exactly right, because what he needed was exactly this: to sit at a table in a small apartment and eat something warm and have nothing be required of him for 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes, he looked up. "It's done," he said. "Both of them," Lily said. "Yes." Lily processed that. "Raymond, too." She said, not quite a question. "He wrote it out himself," Adrian said. "Everything. 4 hours." "Was it—" She stopped. "Was it what you expected?" "No," he said. "It was worse in some ways, and better in others. The damage is narrower than I thought. The betrayal went deeper than I thought." He set down his fork. "They were right about one thing." Lily looked at him. "I have been making decisions with you at the center of them," he said. "Not wrong decisions, but decisions that had a specific weight on them because of you, because of what happened to you was unacceptable to me, because you were the thing I would not let go wrong." He met her eyes. "They called that a vulnerability, and they used it to try to pull everything down." He paused. "What I know now, what 4 hours with Raymond confirmed, is that the vulnerability and the strength are the same thing. You can't separate them. You either accept what comes with caring about someone, or you stop caring about them. Those are the only two options." Lily was very still. "I'm not going to stop caring about you," he said. "I want to be clear about that, in case the last 2 weeks made it unclear." Lily looked at him. Something in her face was working very hard at something, and then it stopped working and just gave way. "I ran away," she said. "I found a piece of paper, and I ran away for 2 weeks without—" "You were given something that was designed to make you run," Adrian said. "There's a difference. I should have called you." "Lily." I know you would have said it didn't matter. I know that. But I should have called you anyway and let you say it instead of—" She stopped, pressed her lips together. "Instead of ending up in an alley." "Yes," he said gently. "That part, yes. The alley was a problem." Something shifted in her expression. A reluctant thing, almost against her will. "That part," she said. "The alley was a definitive low point," he said. "I think we can agree on that." "You're making a joke," she said. "We're discussing me almost freezing to death, and I'm noting," he said carefully, "that you are here, and you're warm, and you're annoyed at me, which is your version of okay. So I'm allowing myself 2 sentences of gentle humor as a pressure valve, because the alternative is sitting here and feeling all of the last 5 days at once, which I am going to defer until I am alone in my apartment with no one watching." Lily stared at him. Then she said, "You're the most emotionally functional, emotionally unavailable person I know." "Thank you," he said. Clara made a sound from the kitchen that was very definitely not a laugh, and completely was. Lily looked toward the kitchen. "She's been doing that all day," she said, making sounds like that, and then not explaining them. "I find you both very reasonable people," Clara said from the kitchen, "with a highly specific communication style." "Is that what it is?" Adrian said. "That's being polite about it," Clara said. She came to the kitchen doorway. Her expression was the same as it always was, steady, present, the particular quality of a person who sees things clearly and responds to what's actually there rather than what she expected to find. Are you actually done? Both of them done. Yes, Adrian said. Then eat the rest of the pasta, she said. And then we need to talk about what happens next. He looked at her. For Lily, she said. She can't stay on my couch indefinitely. And she can't go back to Westchester yet, not. She glanced at Lily. Not until it's been long enough to feel safe. And there are things she probably needs that she doesn't have here, so. She pulled the chair out across from him and sat. What happens next? Adrian looked at Clara Bennett sitting across from him at her small table in her small apartment, speaking about his sister's practical needs with the same matter-of-fact directness she brought to everything, and he thought about what Victor and Raymond had said, in their different ways, about his tendency to weight certain things too heavily. He thought about what it had cost, and then he thought about what it had protected, and he decided that the accounting, however you ran it, came out the same way every time. First, he said, I want to know what you need. Clara blinked. Me? You were named in a fabricated case, Adrian said. Your name, your records, your identity. They were used as a weapon in someone else's plan. That has consequences. Legal exposure, reputational risk, things that need to be formally addressed. He looked at her steadily. Marcus is working on a document that will formally clear your name from every database it was touched in. That'll be done by tomorrow. He paused. But beyond the formal, what do you need? Clara looked at him. She was quiet for long enough that Lily glanced between them. I need my gas bill paid, Clara said finally. Adrian blinked. It's 3 months behind, she said without embarrassment, simply as fact. I have a payment plan with the utility company, but the interest is... It's a lot. If you're asking what I need, that's the thing that's been keeping me up the most nights. A silence. Then Adrian said, Okay. Okay. Clara repeated, slightly suspicious of how straightforwardly that landed. What else? He said. That's actually... She stopped. That's actually the pressing thing. The rest is manageable. She looked at him. I'm not asking for anything. I want to be clear about that. You don't owe me. I know you're not asking, he said. I'm asking. There's a difference. He said the last 4 words in the exact tone she had used the first night when she had told Lily, I'm choosing to. There's a difference. He saw the moment she recognized it, a quick thing, something in her eyes. That's my line, she said. It's a good line, he said. Lily was watching this exchange with an expression that was reading it very carefully. Clara looked at Adrian Romano sitting at her kitchen table with a plate of pasta in front of him, and she thought about what it meant that this was what the conversation had become. Not a mafia boss and a restaurant worker, not a powerful man and a woman who happened to be in the wrong place, but 2 people at a table being honest about what was owed and what wasn't, and what they were willing to give regardless. My son, she said slowly. He's in the school district here. It's not a great school. I've been trying to get him into a program uptown. There's a merit program, he tested into it, but the transportation costs... Done, Adrian said. You don't even know what it costs, Clara said. No, he said. But I know it's less than what your couch was worth. He looked at her. Clara, you stepped in front of my sister and told me I wasn't going to touch her. You had no reason to believe that was going to end well. You did it anyway. She needed it, Clara said. I know, he said. That's what I'm telling you. That's the thing. He was quiet for a moment. I have spent 16 years running an organization based on a very specific understanding of what loyalty looks like. And I watched it, the thing I thought was loyalty, turn out to be the opposite of it. He looked at her. And then I walked into this apartment and saw what it actually looks like. And it was you. 12 hours into knowing a stranger. Not asking for anything. Not calculating anything. Just there. The room was very quiet. Lily had stopped looking between them. She was looking at the table at her own hands with an expression that was private and specific, and working through something that was going to take longer than this evening to fully process. Clara said very quietly, "You're going to make me cry. And I don't do that in front of people." "I'll look away," Adrian said. "That won't help," she said. "It's worse when someone's being decent about it." Lily made a sound that was about 60% laugh and 40% something else, and it broke the particular density of the room into something more breathable, and Clara pressed her lips together against the thing that was trying to happen in her face, and Adrian picked up his fork again. "Finish the pasta," Clara said, recovering. "And then we're going to sit here and figure out the practical things. Lily's clothes, where she's staying this week, the gas bill, the school program, in that order." "The gas bill can be handled tonight," Adrian said. "It can wait until morning," Clara said. "The practical things can wait until morning. Tonight?" She looked at both of them. "Tonight we can just be people who went through something and came out the other side." Adrian looked at her. Lily looked at her. Clara looked back at them both with the particular steadiness that was by this point simply what her face did. "Eat," she said. They ate. The morning after the pasta, Clara's gas bill was paid. She found out not because Adrian told her he didn't, but because she called the utility company at 8:15 to push back a payment she couldn't make that week, and the representative told her with the particular careful neutrality of someone reading from a screen they didn't fully understand that the account had been settled in full the previous evening, including the outstanding interest and the reconnection fee from 3 months ago that Clara had been paying down in installments so small they barely registered. Clara stood in her kitchen holding the phone after the call ended. The total had been $412. She had been carrying that number in the back of her mind for so long it had become part of the furniture of her anxiety. A permanent resident. Something she budgeted around the way you budget around a load-bearing wall. And now it was gone. Settled in full. At some point last night quietly without ceremony. She put the phone down on the counter. She stood there for the moment. Then she picked it up again and texted Adrian's number. She had it from when he'd given it to Lily, who had passed it to her, and typed, "You didn't have to do it last night." He responded in under a minute, "I know." She looked at that for a moment. Then she put the phone in her pocket and went to wake up Marcus. Lily had gone back to the Westchester house the night before, not because she was ready exactly, but because Adrian had said something at the table after the pasta. Something quiet and practical. That staying at Clara's was putting Clara in a position of obligation she hadn't agreed to. And that Lily was 22 years old, and the house was safe now, and the only reason to avoid it was fear. And avoiding things out of fear was not the same as protecting yourself. And Lily had heard that and recognized the tone. This was Adrian's version of gentle, which was directness with the volume lowered, and had packed the borrowed sweater into the bag she'd had when Clara found her and had gone. The house in Westchester was large and quiet in the way that houses become when they have held a lot of life, and the life has temporarily moved elsewhere. Lily walked through it in the dark, and turned on lights as she went to the kitchen, and stood at the counter for a while, not eating anything, just being in the space, and feeling what it felt like now. It felt the same. That was the thing she hadn't expected. She had thought it would feel different, tainted, compromised, marked in some way by what had happened. But it just felt like the house. The same kitchen with the same tile that had a small crack in the corner near the stove that had been there since she was 9. The same hallway with the same coat hooks, one of them slightly lower than the others, because she had asked Adrian to add it when she was 10 so she could hang her own things. She stood at the coat hook. She put her hand on it. She thought about a version of herself that was 10 years old and asking for a small thing and receiving it without question. She thought about what it would have meant to that 10-year-old to know that the man who installed the coat hook knew she was adopted and had simply never once thought it was relevant information. She took her hand off the hook. She went to bed. She slept through until 9 the next morning, which was the longest she had slept in 2 weeks. And when she woke up, the house still felt like the house, and she lay in the bed that was her bed, in the room that was her room, and let that be true for a while. What was happening at the Romano offices that same morning was quieter than Lily would have expected, and more complicated than Adrian had anticipated. The practical dismantling of what Victor and Raymond had built was not a dramatic thing. It was not a confrontation or a reckoning, not in the cinematic sense. It was paperwork. It was Marcus Cole sitting with two independent attorneys and a forensic accountant for 6 hours, going through 8 years of legal architecture and marking the decisions that needed to be unwound, and the ones that could be left alone, and the ones that existed in a gray area that was going to require careful thought. Adrian sat in his office during most of this and did not participate directly, because participating directly would mean making decisions about structures while he was still inside the anger, and he had learned a long time ago that decisions made inside the anger had a specific failure rate. He answered his phone twice. The first call was from a man named Garrett Finch, who ran an organization adjacent to the Romano operation and who had heard the way people in this world always heard things through a network of inference and half-information, and carefully managed rumor that something had shifted at Romano. He was calling to understand what that shift meant for the arrangements between their respective organizations. Adrian told him calmly and completely without elaboration that the Romano organization was stable, that existing arrangements were unchanged, and that he would be reaching out directly in the coming days to each of his significant partners to confirm that personally. Garrett said he appreciated the call. Adrian said he knew. The second call was from someone he hadn't heard from in 3 years. A woman named Elena Voss, no relation to Dario Voss, an unfortunate coincidence of surname, who had been his father's closest advisor before she retired to Connecticut, and who had called, she said, because she had felt a thing in the last 24 hours that she trusted, and which told her something had happened. "Are you intact?" she asked. She had a way of cutting to the center of things that his father had called her best quality, and that had driven everyone else who worked with her slightly insane. "Yes," Adrian said. "Victor," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," he said again. A pause. "I had concerns about Victor 8 years ago," she said. "I should have said them more clearly before I left." "Would I have heard them?" Adrian said. Another pause. "Probably not," she said. You had just lost your father. You needed the people around you to be stable, and Victor was very good at being stable." "He was," Adrian said. "And now the people around me are going to be people I've evaluated differently," Adrian said. More slowly, more carefully. "Good," Elena said. "That's the lesson. Don't let it make you closed. Let it make you more deliberate." She paused. "How is Lily?" "She's okay," he said. "She will be okay." "Good," Elena said again. "She's the best thing in your organization, has been since she was 10 years old. Whatever Victor thought he understood about your weakness, he never understood that." After the calls, Adrian sat alone for a while. He thought about what Elena had said. He thought about Victor in the warehouse, saying you would have been destroyed by her, and about Raymond's careful voice, saying I thought the loyalty was the architecture. He thought about Clara Bennett in her kitchen saying some people see the people closest to them not as positions, but as resources, and about the gap between those two versions of the world and which one he had built his life inside. He picked up his phone and called Marcus Cole. "Where are we?" he said. 6 hours in, Marcus said. "I have a preliminary map of what needs to be unwound. It's manageable, not easy, but manageable. Timeline: 6 to 8 weeks to fully restructure," Marcus said. "There will be a period where things are more exposed than usual. I want to go through security protocols with you this week." "Set it up," Adrian said. "And Marcus." "Yeah." "The Voss situation," Adrian said. Dario Voss, the man who had inserted the fabricated records into the database, who had done the technical work of building the false case against Clara. "Where does that stand?" "He knows he's been identified," Marcus said. "He's been quiet since yesterday morning. I have someone on him." "He's going to run," Adrian said. "Probably." "Let him get to the airport," Adrian said. "Then have him stopped." A pause. "You want him stopped at the airport specifically?" "I want him stopped with his bag packed and his ticket in his hand," Adrian said. I want him to understand in a very concrete way that the space he thought he was going to disappear into does not exist. He paused. And then I want him to understand that what he did to Clara Bennett's records is going to be reversed completely and documented completely, and that if I ever see his name connected to anything that touches my family again, the airport is going to seem like a very pleasant memory. Understood, Marcus said. One more thing, Adrian said. What? The adoption file, Adrian said. The physical one, the original documents. I need it returned from wherever Victor had it. Full chain of custody. And then I need you to find me a particular set of documents. Which ones? Everything about where Lily came from, Adrian said. The original placement. The records from before she was brought to us. I've had access to those files for 3 years and never opened them. He paused. I think it's time I opened them. Not for any operational reason. Because she deserves to know if she wants to. And she can't make that choice if I'm the one holding the information. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You're going to tell her the files exist, he said. I'm going to give her the choice, Adrian said. What she does with it is hers. What? 3 things happened that afternoon that Adrian didn't know about. The first was that Lily drove from Westchester to Forsyth Street. Not because she had a specific reason, but because she woke up in her house and had coffee and looked at her phone and thought about Clara making oatmeal, and Marcus explaining the structural failure of a papier-mâché volcano, and found herself wanting to be in that kitchen again, in that particular atmosphere of ordinary that she had been trying for 2 weeks to understand why she needed so badly. She knocked on the door at 11:15. Clara opened it. She looked at Lily standing there with a bag that had something in it. Lily had stopped at the bakery on Delancey, the one she'd walked past twice on her nights wandering the neighborhood, and bought pastries, the good kind, the ones with the almond filling. I brought things, Lily said. I can see that, Clara said. Come in. They sat at the kitchen table and had coffee and pastries, and Clara did not ask how last night was, and Lily did not explain, and after about 20 minutes of relatively comfortable silence, Lily said, Can I ask you something? Okay, Clara said. When you're afraid, Lily said. Not the kind you mentioned before, not the kind where someone's at your door. The other kind. The kind where you're not sure who you are or where you belong. What do you do with that? Clara held her coffee. I do the next thing, she said. Whatever the next concrete thing is, I make oatmeal, I pack a bag, I make a phone call, not because it fixes the big thing, but because doing the next thing is the only way to stay inside your own life when the big thing is trying to pull you out of it. And if you don't know what the next thing is, Lily said, then you sit, Clara said. And you wait for it to become clear. And while you're sitting, you drink something warm, and you try not to make any permanent decisions. She paused. You spent 2 weeks trying to make a permanent decision based on 3 words on a piece of paper. That's what those words were designed to do. Make you decide something forever before you had enough information. Lily looked at her. The best revenge on that, Clara said, is to just not decide, to wait, to find out what's actually true, and then decide from there. And what's actually true, Lily said. Clara looked at her steadily. That you have a brother who drove across Manhattan at midnight to find you, she said. That you have been loved your whole life by someone who knew the thing that was supposed to change everything and decided it didn't. That's what's true. She paused. The rest is noise. The second thing that happened that afternoon was that Clara's Marcus, 7 years old, came home from school and found Lily in his kitchen and reacted with the complete pragmatic acceptance of a child who has learned that his mother sometimes brings unexpected things into their life, and that the unexpected things are usually fine. You're back, he said. I'm back, Lily said. Did you bring anything, he said. Marcus, Clara said from across the kitchen. What? She had a bag yesterday. There are pastries, Lily said. Almond ones. Marcus considered this. Okay, he said, and put down his backpack. He sat next to Lily at the table and ate a pastry, and told her about something that had happened at school that day involving a disagreement over the rules of a game that he was clearly confident he had been right about. Lily listened with the same real attention she had given him the night before. She asked clarifying questions about the rules of the game. Marcus escalated his account in response. Clara stood at the counter watching this and felt the thing she had felt that morning again. The thing she wasn't going to name that lived in the vicinity of something she had stopped letting herself want a long time ago, because wanting it had not served her, and the not wanting had become efficient. The third thing that happened that afternoon was a phone call to Clara's cell phone from a number she didn't recognize. She answered it in the hallway away from the kitchen with Lily and Marcus's voices audible through the door. "Ms. Bennett," said the voice on the other end. A woman's voice. Professional. "My name is Catherine Dorn. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Romano's office." Clara's hand tightened on the phone slightly. "Okay," she said. "I have a few things I need to communicate to you," Catherine said. "First, the matter of the records in your name that were incorrectly inserted into financial databases, those have been fully removed, and the removal has been documented. I can send you a formal letter confirming this for your own records." "Please," Clara said. "Second," Catherine said, "there's the matter of the merit program for your son's school transfer. I've spoken with the program director, and there's a place available beginning next month. The transportation costs are covered for the full academic year. Again, I'll send documentation." Clara stood in the hallway and said nothing. "Ms. Bennett." "I'm here," Clara said. Yes, thank you." "Third," Catherine said, "Mr. Romano asked me to let you know that if you have any other practical matters, anything outstanding, anything that requires attention, you should not hesitate to contact this office directly. My number is—" "That won't be necessary," Clara said. A pause. "I beg your pardon. Clara caught herself, reorganized. The things you've mentioned are more than enough. I don't want to use this as I didn't help Lily because I expected anything. I want to be clear about that." "Mr. Romano is clear about that," Catherine said with a warmth in her professional voice that suggested she had been briefed thoroughly. "He said to tell you that's precisely why he's handling it." Clara stood in the hallway. She thought about $412, about a school program she had been trying to navigate for 8 months, about the particular weight of being a person who solves problems alone for so long that the experience of having something handled is almost more disorienting than the problem itself. "Tell him," she said, "that I said thank you." "I will," Catherine said. After she hung up, Clara stood in the hallway for another 30 seconds. Then she went back into the kitchen, where Lily was now drawing something on a piece of paper at Marcus's direction, and she poured herself a second cup of coffee, and she stood at the counter and let herself have the feeling, whatever it was, for the full length of a minute. That was all it got. 1 minute. Then she put the cup down and went to see what they were drawing. Adrian arrived at 5. He knocked, and Lily opened the door, which surprised him slightly. She was supposed to be in Westchester. She read his face and said, "I came back," without explaining further, which was fair. He came in and found his sister and Clara's son at the kitchen table with a piece of paper between them that appeared to be a highly detailed blueprint for something Marcus was explaining its purpose with the intensity of someone presenting to a board of directors. Clara was at the counter. Adrian stood in the doorway and took in the room. He had been in this apartment 4 times in the last 36 hours. Each time it had felt slightly different, the first time tense and clarifying, the second time necessary, the third time like something settling. This time, it felt like arriving somewhere. That was the only word for it. He set it aside for now and moved into the room. "What is that?" he asked, nodding at the blueprint. "A submarine," Marcus said without looking up. "A submarine," Adrian repeated. "For the bathtub," Marcus said. "It needs to be a specific size." "Of course," Adrian said. He looked at Lily. "You're supposed to be in Westchester." "I know," she said. "Are you okay there?" "It's fine," she said. "It's just here was better, today." She met his eyes. Is that okay? You're 22, he said. You can be wherever you want. I know that, she said. I'm asking if it's okay with you. He looked at her. This was the new territory, not the crisis, but the aftermath of the crisis, the place where they were going to have to figure out what regular looked like now, what they were going to be to each other when there was nothing to survive, when it was just Wednesday afternoon and normal life. Yes, he said. It's okay. He looked at Clara. She was watching him with that direct look that by now he had catalogued as simply how she operated. Not aggressive, not demanding, just present, in a way that required you to be present back. Catherine called you, he said. She did, Clara said. And the things she mentioned are more than enough, Clara said. I told her so. I heard, he said. She told me. Then you know I meant it, Clara said. I know you meant it, he said. It doesn't change what's being done. Adrian, Clara. He said it the way she said things quietly, with finality, not unkind. You stepped into the middle of something that could have ended very badly for you. The reason it didn't end badly for you is partly luck and partly your own character, and partly the fact that my sister has enough courage to stand between you and a man she hadn't seen in 2 weeks. The debt that creates is real. I don't negotiate away real debts. Clara looked at him. I'm not negotiating, she said. I'm telling you it's enough. It's a starting point, he said. He held her gaze. We can argue about where the line is as we go, but we're going. Something in Clara's expression did a very precise thing that Adrian read as accurately as he read most things and did not comment on. Fine, she said. Good, he said. Marcus looked between them. Are you arguing? He asked. No, Clara said. It sounded like arguing, Marcus said. It was a negotiation, Clara said. What's the difference? Marcus said. In a negotiation, Lily said, both people get something. Marcus considered this. What did you both get? He said. I'm still figuring that out, Clara said. The thing Adrian needed to tell Lily had been sitting with him since his conversation with Marcus that morning, and he had been waiting for the right moment all afternoon, and was beginning to understand that there was no right moment for something like this. There was only the moment you chose. He chose the kitchen table after Marcus had been called to do homework, and Lily and Clara were both sitting with their coffee. I need to tell you something, he said. Lily looked at him. The adoption file, he said. The one Victor accessed. The one that had the note inside it. He paused. There's more than what was in that cabinet. There is a complete record, the original placement record, everything from before you came to us that has been held in a separate location. I've had access to it for 3 years. Lily went very still. I haven't opened it, he said. Not once. When Dad told me about the adoption, he told me the files existed, and I chose not to look at them because I didn't need to know, and I didn't think it was my business. He held her gaze. But they exist, and they're yours, if you want them. The kitchen was very quiet. Clara had both hands around her cup and was looking at the table. Mine, Lily said, trying out the word. Everything in them, he said. Your name before ours. Where you came from. Whatever is documented about before. He kept his voice level, not pushing, not pulling back, just laying it flat on the table for her to look at. I'm not telling you to open them. I'm not telling you not to. I'm telling you they exist, and they belong to you. And when you want them today, in a year, never you say the word. Lily looked at the table. The clock on Clara's kitchen wall was audible. The particular sound of homework being accomplished intermittently in the other room, Marcus erasing something with the aggressive thoroughness of someone who doesn't believe in mistakes. Can I ask you something? Lily said. Yes. When Dad told you, she said, how did you feel? Adrian thought about it honestly. I felt like I wanted to find you immediately and tell you, he said. And then I felt like that was about me, not you. About my need to be the one to say it. To control how you found out. He paused. So I didn't. I waited and told myself I was being patient, and I told myself you'd know when you needed to know. And I was partially right and partially using patience as an excuse not to have a conversation I didn't know how to start. Lily looked at him. So I found out from a piece of paper in a cabinet. Yes, he said, and that's on me. She held that, rolled it around, looked at it from several angles. I'm not angry, she said slowly. I want to be a little. It would be easier if I was angry, but I understand why you... She stopped. I probably would have done the same thing. You would have handled it better, he said. I ended up in an alley, she said. Fair point, he said. The not quite laugh again, that specific sound of hers, the thing that lived between relief and grief and was its own distinct category. The files, she said. I don't want them today. Okay, he said. I might want them eventually, she said. I don't know. Right now knowing they exist that's enough. That's a lot, actually. She looked at him. That they're mine. That I can choose. She paused. That's the part that matters most. I know, he said. I spent 2 weeks thinking the choice had already been made, she said. That the piece of paper was the truth, and everything else was the version of it that people had been kind enough to maintain. And the thing that broke me more than the adoption was the feeling that I had never had a choice. That it had all been decided before I could have a say in any of it. Lily, I know, she said. I know that's not... She shook her head. What Victor did. What he understood about me, what he used. He knew that was the thing, the choice. He took away my sense of choice and watched what happened. She looked at her hands. What happens to him, she said. Actually, what does it actually look like? Adrian considered how to answer this. Not the operational answer that was handled, documented, contained. The real answer. He loses everything he tried to build, he said. The assets he moved are being returned. The position he held is gone. The access he had to the organization, to any organization adjacent to it, is over. He paused. He is a man who spent 16 years building something and then spent 5 years building something else in secret and now has neither. He met her eyes. That's what actually happens to people who bet everything on the wrong thing. And Raymond, Lily said. Raymond spent 4 hours writing out 8 years of quiet betrayal in his own handwriting, Adrian said. He signed every page. He paused. The legal architecture he built to serve himself is being dismantled. He gave us the roadmap for that himself. He'll spend the next several years managing the consequences of what he documented. He was quiet for a moment. Raymond is 61 years old. He had a reputation built over 40 years of practice. What that looks like now is not something I'm fully the author of. Lily looked at him. You gave him a chance to tell the truth, she said. Yes. That wasn't nothing, she said. No, he said. It wasn't. Clara had been very still through all of this. She said now quietly, Can I ask something? Both of them looked at her. The note, she said. Not your blood. Victor wrote it. Yes, Adrian said. He wrote it to make Lily run, Clara said. And she ran. And she ended up in that alley. And I found her there. She held her coffee. What would have happened if she had ended up somewhere else? If someone else had found her, or no one had found her? The question sat in the room. Adrian looked at Clara Bennett and understood what she was doing. Not interrogating, not accusing. Tracing. Following the line of it back to its origin, to understand the full shape of what Victor had built, and what the stakes of each moment had actually been. If someone else had found her, Adrian said slowly, or if no one had, Victor's plan required me destabilized, required me moving in the wrong direction, fast and angry and unable to think clearly. If Lily had been in danger, real danger, not manufactured danger, that would have been Victor's best outcome. A Romano in crisis, a man making decisions from grief rather than clarity. He stopped. He didn't care what happened to her. She was a mechanism. Clara nodded. So the alley, she said. Specifically, the alley. The specific cold and the specific 4 hours and the specific moment I walked by. Was the thing he didn't plan for, Adrian said. Because he didn't account for someone choosing differently than he expected, Clara said. Yes, Adrian said. She nodded again. Not self-importantly, just settling something. Placing something in its proper position in the architecture of the last few days. Okay, she said. I just wanted to understand the whole shape of it. You wanted to know if it mattered? Lily said, looking at her. What you did. You wanted to know if it actually changed something. Clara looked at Lily. It changed everything, Adrian said. Every downstream consequence of the last 4 days comes from that one moment. The case against you. My coming to this apartment and seeing Lily standing in front of you, Marcus pulling the records, Victor in the warehouse, Raymond in his office. He was very direct. If you had walked past her, Clara, the version of the next 4 days that exists is entirely different. I don't know that I get to the truth in time. I don't know that I get to it at all. The kitchen was very quiet. Marcus came out of the other room with a math worksheet held at arm's length like it had personally wronged him. Mom, he said, fractions are wrong. Fractions are not wrong, Clara said, and the room exhaled and she got up and went to look at the fractions, and Lily looked at Adrian and Adrian looked at Lily, and something passed between them that didn't need language and didn't get any. Chai. What happened over the next 3 weeks was less dramatic than the 4 days that preceded it, and more important in the long run. Adrian spent those weeks doing what he had told Garrett Finch he would do, reaching out one by one to every significant partner and arrangement connected to the Romano organization and having the conversations directly. In person where possible. On the phone where not. He said what was true, that there had been internal instability, that it had been addressed, that the organization was intact. He said it without elaborating on the details and without inviting questions about those details, and the people who mattered received this with the particular attentiveness of people who understand that what is not said is often the most significant communication. Marcus Cole worked 12-hour days for 3 of those weeks. He was thorough in the way he always was, and he was also something else during those weeks, more deliberate, more careful about the difference between information he was certain of and information he was inferring. Adrian noticed this and said nothing about it, which was its own form of acknowledgement. The unwinding of what Victor and Raymond had built took longer than 6 to 8 weeks in the end. It took 11. There was a period in the middle of it where 3 things happened simultaneously that required decisions under time pressure, and Adrian made those decisions with less information than he would have liked, and more speed than he was comfortable with. And 2 of the 3 turned out well, and 1 of them turned out less well and required correction. He told Lily about it one evening sitting in the kitchen in Westchester. How bad, she said. Manageable, he said, but a mistake. She looked at him. You're telling me about a mistake. Yes, he said. You never used to do that, she said. I know, he said. She held that, looked at it. What changed, she said. He thought about how to answer that honestly. I spent 16 years thinking that the way you protect people is by managing what they know, he said. By holding the information that would worry them and presenting them with outcomes that are already resolved. He looked at his coffee. I told myself that was protection. I think it was also control. And I think it cost us things. He paused. Raymond was right about one thing. I make decisions through a specific emotional filter. The filter isn't wrong, but I had been using it to decide what you got to know, and that's not my decision to make. Lily sat with that. The files, she said. Are they still? Whenever you're ready, he said. They're not going anywhere. She nodded. Not yet, she said. But I think eventually. Okay, he said. I'm going to want to know, she said. I've been thinking about it, not every day, but I've been thinking about it. I want to know where I came from, not because it changes anything about here, but because... She stopped, searched for it. Because knowing the full true shape of your own life is it's yours, even the parts that are hard. You should have access to them." "Yes," Adrian said. "That's exactly right." She looked at him. "You knew that already," she said. "I knew it in the abstract," he said. "I wasn't applying it correctly." She almost smiled. "Emotionally functional, emotionally unavailable," she said. "I'm improving," he said. "Marginally," she said. But Clara's life in those same 3 weeks continued to be what it was. Work Marcus the radiator, the gas bill that was no longer a crisis, the school transfer paperwork that Catherine Dorn's office had handled with an efficiency that Clara found both impressive and slightly surreal. Marcus started the new program on a Thursday morning in the 3rd week. Clara put him on the bus. The program provided a bus, which was the part she had found most impossible to imagine when she was trying to navigate the application and watch the bus go, and stood on the sidewalk for a moment afterward. She thought about a Tuesday night in February and a thin sound from behind a dumpster. She thought about how close she had come to walking past it. She had walked past things before, not cruelly, not deliberately, but as a matter of survival, the conservation of attention that a person alone manages carefully because attention is a finite resource, and the city has infinite claims on it. She went back upstairs to her apartment. She made coffee. She sat at the table where 3 people had eaten pasta, and she looked at the coloring book Marcus had left at the edge of the table, open to a page he had only half finished, a dinosaur that was currently lacking both its back legs and any sense of color below the neck. She picked up a crayon. She was finishing the dinosaur when her phone rang. Adrian. She looked at the name for a moment. "Yes," she answered. "I have a question," he said. "Okay," she said. "My sister is going to be in the city Saturday afternoon. She wants to go to that bakery on Delancey, the one with the almond pastries." Clara said nothing. "I told her I'd check whether you were free," he said. "Whether I was free," Clara said. "And your son," he said. "He mentioned he had opinions about submarine design that he wanted to continue developing. I thought he might want to be there." Clara looked at the half-colored dinosaur on the table. "Adrian," she said. "Yes." "Are you asking me if I want to have coffee with your sister?" she said. "Or are you asking me something more complicated than that?" A pause. "I'm asking about Saturday," he said. "That's the only thing I'm asking about. The more complicated question can wait for its own conversation." "Is there going to be a more complicated conversation?" she said. "Eventually," he said. "Probably." "You say that with a lot of confidence," she said. "I have some basis for it," he said. Clara looked at the dinosaur. She looked at the kitchen. She looked at the place where the radiator knocked against the wall, which it was doing right now reliably as it always did. "Saturday," she said. "The bakery. We'll be there." "Good," he said. "And Adrian," she said. "Yes." "The complicated conversation," she said. "When it happens, I'm going to be very direct in it." "I know," he said. "I'm counting on that." After the call, she sat for another moment. Then she picked up the crayon again and finished the dinosaur back legs, color the whole thing in the specific electric blue that Marcus had been using before he left, because it was his dinosaur and it should be finished the way he would have finished it. She set the crayon down. She looked at the clock. She had 3 hours before her shift started. She got up. She did the next thing. Saturday came in the way February mornings sometimes do in New York, cold, but with a quality of light that suggested the season was beginning to reconsider its position. Clara noticed the light when she was getting Marcus ready, the way it came through the kitchen window at a slightly different angle than it had been coming for weeks, something incremental and almost argumentative. The sun making a case for itself that winter wasn't quite ready to concede. Marcus was in a state of high operational energy about the bakery. He had been told there would be almond pastries, and he had also been told that the girl from the couch, which was how he had been referring to Lily since her first visit with the matter-of-fact categorizing impulse of a child who files people by where he first encountered them, would be there, and both of these facts had combined into an enthusiasm that made getting him dressed an exercise in redirecting momentum rather than creating it. "Will the man be there?" Marcus asked, pulling on his second shoe. Which man? Clara said, knowing. The one who came to our door, Marcus said. The big one. His name is Adrian, Clara said. And I don't know. He was serious, Marcus said, not disapprovingly. Like a principal, but taller. That's an accurate description, Clara said. Is he nice? Marcus said. Clara thought about that honestly, the way she thought about most things. He's trying to be, she said. I think that's the more interesting version of nice. Marcus considered this with the philosophical seriousness he applied to most questions. Okay, he said, and stood up, ready. They walked to the bakery on Delancey. It was 4 blocks, and Marcus spent 3 of them explaining something about a project at the new school that involved bridges, and Clara listened with half her attention and used the other half to register what was different about walking those 4 blocks this morning versus 2 weeks ago, when she had walked the same stretch in the other direction at 12:17 in the morning with leftover soup in her bag. Everything was the same. Nothing was the same. The street did not know this and did not care which was the correct behavior for a street. Lily was already there when they arrived. She was at a table near the window wearing a coat that was hers and fit her correctly, her dark hair down a cup of something in front of her. She looked up when Clara and Marcus came in, and her face did the thing it always did now when she saw them. Something that had been working at becoming neutral and hadn't quite gotten there, something that landed instead in the vicinity of genuine. You came, she said. We said we would, Clara said. I know, Lily said. She stopped. I'm still not entirely used to people doing what they say. Marcus sat down next to Lily without preamble. Are there almond ones? He said. I already ordered some, Lily said. They're coming. Okay, he said, and appeared to settle in for the duration. Clara sat across from Lily. She looked at her properly for the first time in several days. They had texted. Lily had come by the apartment twice, but this was different, sitting across from her in a public place with daylight on both of them. How are you? Clara said. Better? Lily said. Genuinely. Not the version of better where you say it because you don't want to explain. She wrapped her hands around her cup. I've been sleeping, eating. I went back to the house and it felt like the house. She paused. That was the thing I was most afraid of, that it would feel different, tainted or hollow or something, and it felt like home. That's good, Clara said. It surprised me, Lily said. I thought the note would have... She shook her head. I thought I would look at everything and see the thing Victor put there, the doubt, but I didn't. I looked at the coat hook in the hallway that Adrian installed when I was 10, and I just thought about him installing it. She looked at Clara. That's what actually lasts, not the thing someone tries to plant in you, the real things. The pastries arrived. Marcus engaged with one immediately, and with complete commitment. Adrian's not coming, Clara asked, keeping her voice level. Lily looked at her. One corner of her mouth moved. He said he had something to handle this morning, she said. He said he'd try. Try, Clara said. With Adrian? Lily said try means he's coming and he doesn't want to make it a thing. Clara picked up her coffee. He doesn't want to make what a thing, she said. Lily looked at her with an expression that was entirely too composed for someone who was 22. Clara, she said, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm drinking my coffee, Clara said. That's not a denial, Lily said. It's not a confirmation either, Clara said. Mom, Marcus said without looking up from the pastry, your face is doing the thing. What thing? Clara said. The thing where you're thinking something and trying not to look like you're thinking it, Marcus said. You do it when you're talking about the gas bill. Lily made a sound into her cup. Eat your pastry, Clara told her son. I am eating my pastry, Marcus said reasonably. I can do two things. Adrian arrived at 10:20. He came through the bakery door in the dark coat, no men with him, just himself, and the particular quality of presence he carried that was neither performance nor effort, but simply the accumulated weight of someone who had spent a long time being the person that rooms reorganized themselves around. Marcus looked up. "The principal," he said. "Marcus," Clara said. "What?" Marcus said. "That's what I said he was like. He said his name is Adrian, but also he's like a principal." Adrian stopped at the edge of the table. He looked at Marcus with an expression that was after a moment recognizably the beginnings of something approaching amusement. "I'm not a principal," he said. "Are you in charge of things?" Marcus said. "Yes," Adrian said. "Then you're like a principal," Marcus said with the serene finality of someone who considers the matter settled. Adrian sat down. He sat next to Clara across from Lily, and the table rearranged itself around this fact the way tables do. Lily passed him the pastry plate without being asked. He took one without looking at it and looked at Lily instead. "You look better," he said. "I am better," she said. "Good," he said. One word completely full of something. Lily looked at him. "You look tired," she said. "I've been sleeping fine," he said. "That's not what tired means," she said. "You look tired in the way you look when you've been thinking about something too hard for too long." He looked at her. "When did you get diagnostic?" he said. "I've always been diagnostic," she said. "You just weren't paying attention." He picked up his coffee. The bakery did its Saturday morning business around them. Other tables, other conversations. The sound of the espresso machine, and the particular warm smell of the place that was doing something to all four of them in different ways. Marcus had moved on from the almond pastry to studying the display case with the focused attention of someone planning a second operation. "There's something I need to tell you both," Adrian said. Both Clara and Lily looked at him. He set down his cup. He looked at the table for a moment in the way of someone organizing not the words, but the order of them. "Victor's sentencing is next month," he said. "The evidence Marcus documented, the recordings, the asset transfers, it was enough for a formal process. He's not going to trial. He's taking an arrangement." He paused. "Raymond is separately facing disbarment proceedings. The documentation he provided, the 8 years of records he wrote out in his own hand, the Bar Association has it now. That process will take time, but it's moving." Lily nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "That's..." She stopped. "Is it strange that I feel almost nothing about that? Not relief, not satisfaction. Just, oh, okay." "No," Clara said. "It's not strange." Lily looked at her. "You've already processed the thing itself," Clara said. "The formal outcome is just the paperwork version of something you already finished dealing with." She paused. "The feelings were real when you were in the alley. They were real when you were standing in front of me and your brother. What's left now is just the official acknowledgement of what was already true." Adrian looked at Clara when she said this. He looked at her in the way he sometimes looked at her, with the specific quality of attention he gave to things that were reorienting something he had been holding at the wrong angle. "Yes," he said. "That's exactly what it is." "I know," Clara said, and picked up her coffee. Marcus returned from his contemplation of the display case. "There are ones with chocolate," he announced. "There are always ones with chocolate," Clara said. "Can I have one?" he said. "You just had an almond one," she said. "That was 10 minutes ago," he said. "Time does not work that way," Clara said. "It does, though," Marcus said. 10 minutes is 10 minutes. It was a different 10 minutes. Lily was looking at Marcus with an expression that was entirely unguarded, and Clara saw it and filed it the way she filed most things carefully, without making it into anything it wasn't yet. "Get the chocolate one," Adrian said. Marcus looked at him. Then he looked at Clara. Clara looked at Adrian. "You don't get to do that," she said. "He made a reasonable argument," Adrian said. "He made a 7-year-old's argument," Clara said. "Which was also reasonable," Adrian said. "You're undermining a parenting decision," Clara said. "I'm providing a second opinion," Adrian said. "You don't have jurisdiction," Clara said. Something shifted in Adrian's face, very slightly. "I might be working on that," he said. The table went quiet. Not uncomfortably, but quietly, in the way that happens when something has been said that is slightly larger than the container of the sentence it came in. Lily was looking at the table with the expression of careful neutrality that was doing a significant amount of work. Marcus, who had been looking between the two adults with the alert attention of a child reading a room he doesn't fully understand but knows is important, said, "Can I get the chocolate one or not?" "Yes," Clara said without looking away from Adrian. "You can get the chocolate one." Marcus went to get the chocolate one. Clara and Adrian looked at each other across the table. "Working on it," she said. "Yes," he said. "That's a significant word choice," she said. "I'm aware," he said. "I'm going to need that complicated conversation to happen sooner rather than later," she said. "I don't do well with ambiguity." "I know," he said. "That's one of the things He stopped, reorganized. "Saturday afternoon in a bakery is probably not the right—" "Agreed," she said. "Tonight," he said. "If you're free." She looked at him. "I'm free after 7, she said. "Marcus goes to bed at 8:30. 7:15, he said. "Okay," she said. Lily had both hands around her cup and was looking out the window at the street with the focused neutrality of someone who is very deliberately not listening to a conversation they have absolutely heard every word of. "Lily," Clara said. Lily turned. "Yes." "Stop pretending you weren't listening," Clara said. "I was looking at the street," Lily said. "You were listening to the street," Clara said. Lily dropped the neutrality. Something warm and real took its place. "Are you happy?" she said. Not playfully, genuinely. Clara looked at her. The question asked that directly without any of the wrapping that usually comes around it deserved the same directness back. "I'm getting there," she said. "I think I'm getting there." Lily nodded. That was enough for her. She picked up her cup. Marcus came back with the chocolate pastry and a look of complete satisfaction and sat down, and the table returned to itself. The four of them, the coffee. The February light through the window. The bakery doing its business around them. And nothing about it was resolved in the large sense. Nothing was finished or complete, or free of the complications that the coming weeks and months would bring. But it was real. It was specifically and precisely real. And that, for this particular Saturday morning in February, was the whole of what was needed. Batter bag. The complicated conversation happened at 7:19. Adrian knocked. Clara opened the door. Marcus was in bed, theoretically asleep, actually probably conducting some internal monologue about bridge engineering, but contained and horizontal, and not a factor in the next portion of the evening. Clara had not changed out of what she'd been wearing at the bakery, which was a deliberate choice. She was not going to perform anything for this conversation, was not going to signal through clothing that she had thought about it more than she had, even though she had thought about it quite a lot. She had thought about it while doing dishes after Marcus's dinner. She had thought about it while reading him 2 chapters of the book they were working through. She had thought about it in the 10 minutes between tucking him in and the knock at the door, sitting at the kitchen table, with her hands flat on the surface, doing an honest audit of herself. What she had found in the audit was this. She was 34 years old, and she had been alone for 6 years, and she had built a life that worked, and that she was proud of, and that contained almost everything she needed, except the specific thing that she had stopped allowing herself to need, because the math of wanting it and not having it was worse than the math of simply not wanting it. And now Adrian Romano was standing in her doorway. She stepped back. He came in. They sat at the kitchen table. "You want coffee?" she said. "No," he said. "If I drink coffee at 7, I won't sleep." "You already weren't sleeping," she said. "I'm trying to improve," he said. She looked at him. He looked at her. The kitchen was its kitchen self. The coat hook, the coloring book, the crayon drawing that said Marcus on the refrigerator, the radiator knocking its reliable knock in the corner. "Say the thing," Clara said. Adrian looked at her. "I want to be honest with you about something before anything else," he said. "Okay," she said. The kind of life I have, he said, is complicated in ways that most people don't choose to be adjacent to. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. There are risks. There are realities. There is a reason I have not. There are things I've avoided for a long time because of those realities. He met her eyes. I'm not in a position to offer you something uncomplicated. I'm not going to show up here and tell you this is simple because it isn't, and you deserve someone who tells you the truth about what they actually are. Clara said nothing. What I can tell you, he continued, is that what I feel when I look at you is I don't have a version of it that is convenient or well-timed or uncomplicated. I've looked for one for the last 3 weeks, and I haven't found it. He paused. And I have been in this business long enough to know that when you can't find the convenient version of something, the honest thing to do is stop looking for it and just say the true one. Clara looked at him. The true one, she said. The true one, he said, is that you are the most clear-eyed person I've met in a very long time, and that watching you who you are, how you move through the world, what you choose and what you don't, has been like being handed something that I didn't know I had lost. He was completely direct, no performance, just the words laid flat. I'm not asking you for anything tonight. I'm not showing up here with a plan. I'm showing up here because I said I would, and because the honest thing is to tell you that directly and let you do whatever you want to do with it. Clara looked at her hands on the table. She looked at the refrigerator. She looked back at Adrian Romano. Do you know what I did for the first 2 years after Marcus's father left? She said. No, he said. I decided I was fine, she said. Completely, permanently fine. I built a system. I got good at the system. I got so good at it that the system started to feel like contentment, and I let myself believe that was the same thing. She paused. It took me until Marcus was about 3 before I was honest enough with myself to know the difference. And then I was honest, and the difference was uncomfortable, and I decided I preferred the system to the discomfort, so I went back to the system. Adrian was watching her. I'm telling you this, she said, because I want you to understand that my being direct with you is not the same as my being uncomplicated. I have a son and a system and a history of making the practical choice, because the practical choice is the one that keeps the lights on. And you are... She stopped, looked at him. You are the least practical thing that has happened to me in 6 years. That's accurate, he said. I know, she said. I've been thinking about it for 3 weeks. And, he said. She looked at him for a long moment. And, she said, I think I'm done with the system. The kitchen was very quiet. Then Adrian said, Okay. Okay, she repeated. I'm still not offering you something simple, he said. I know what you're offering, she said. I understood it from the first sentence. She held his gaze. I'm not 22. I'm not looking for simple. I'm looking for real. Real I can do, he said. Then we're starting from the same place, she said. She got up and poured herself coffee because she needed something to do with her hands, and she poured him one too, because it was there, and it was the thing she did, and she brought both cups to the table and sat back down. There are going to be things I can't know, she said. About your work. I understand that. Yes, he said. There are going to be things I'm going to be direct about that you're not going to enjoy being direct about, she said. I know, he said. That's actually... He paused with the slight quality of someone admitting something. That's part of it. You don't let me be managed. I didn't realize how much I needed that until I was standing in your hallway at midnight and you asked me whether my sister knew I was there. Clara almost smiled. That question scared you, she said. It stopped me, he said. Which is harder to do than scaring me. He looked at her. The people around me, the ones who have been around me for years, they learned how to present things to me, how to frame information to get a specific response. I thought that was competence. I didn't understand until recently that I had been inside a managed environment for a very long time. He paused. You don't manage me. I manage everyone, Clara said. I just do it for their benefit, not mine. He looked at her. That's the difference, she said, between what Victor did and what other people do. She picked up her cup. I'm telling you what's true because you need it to function, not because it serves me. That's all management should ever be. Adrian held his cup without drinking from it. You're going to be an interesting person to know, he said. I'm a restaurant worker from the Lower East Side with a kid and a gas bill, she said. I'm not interesting, I'm just honest. Those are the same thing, he said. In the world I live in, honest is the rarest and therefore the most interesting thing there is. She looked at him. She thought about February and an alley and a sound that had stopped her in her tracks and a choice she had made before she fully understood she was making it. She thought about what it meant that the thread from that moment had led here to this table, to this conversation, to this man sitting across from her, being more honest than most people she had known for years. She thought about what Marcus had said in the bakery, the principal but taller. She thought about the look on Lily's face when she had asked, "Are you happy genuinely, without any frame around it?" She thought about the system she had built, and the things it had kept out, along with the things it had kept safe. 7:15 on a Saturday night, she said, for a first conversation. I was across town at 6, he said. I didn't want to show up too early. You timed it, she said. I timed it, he admitted. That's very organized for a romantic overture, she said. I'm an organized person, he said. I know, she said. I've noticed. They drank their coffee. The radiator knocked. 3 weeks after that conversation, Lily opened the files. She didn't tell anyone she was going to do it. She made that decision at 8 in the morning on a Tuesday, standing in her kitchen in Westchester, with her coffee, and by 9, she was sitting at the table with the envelope that Marcus Cole had delivered the week before, unopened, sitting in the same spot on the table she had been walking past every day. She sat with it for a while before she touched it. Then she opened it. The documents inside were older than she had expected, not in the legal sense, but in the specific texture of things that have been handled and stored and handled again over decades. The official papers, first the placement record, the court documentation dates and names, and the particular dry language of legal processes that describe the largest moments in a person's life with administrative neutrality. She had a name before Romano. She had never known that. She had thought she wasn't sure what she had thought. That she had simply been found and named, and that was the whole of the before. But there was a name. A first name given before that someone had given her, and it was written in the record in the formal way of such documents, the way that makes even the most personal things feel like data. She held that for a while. She read further. What she found in the full file was both less painful and more complex than she had feared. There had been a mother. Young, the file said, very young. A situation that the file described in careful social services language that Lily was old enough and smart enough to read between. Not abandonment in the sense of not caring. Abandonment in the sense of impossible circumstances and a specific kind of desperation that produces choices that look like one thing from the outside and are something else entirely from the inside. There was no father listed. There was a note handwritten, not like the note, not a weapon, just a small piece of paper in a different kind of handwriting than Victor's careful script that said in words that were not legal or formal or carefully chosen, just words, "Please give her something I can't." Lily sat with that note for a long time. She thought about a woman she had never known and would probably never find, and who had written 6 words that had in their own way turned into everything. She thought about Adrian at 16, crouching in the rain. She thought about the coat hook in the hallway. She thought about 3 words placed deliberately to make her run, and 6 words written in desperation to make someone stay. She folded the handwritten note very carefully. She put it in the pocket closest to her. She called Adrian. He picked up on the first ring. I opened them, she said. A pause. How are you? He said. She stopped, checked herself honestly. I'm okay, actually okay, not the other kind. She paused. There's a lot in here. I need to process it, but there's something I need to tell you first. Tell me, he said. She asked someone to give me something she couldn't. Lily said. The person who... She stopped. She wrote a note in the file. Not like the other note. She wrote 6 words. She pressed her hand against her pocket where the folded paper was. She wanted someone to give me what she couldn't. A life. A family. Her voice was very steady and very careful. She wanted that for me. Whatever happened, however it happened, she wanted that. Adrian said nothing for a moment. When he spoke, his voice had the quality it got when he was feeling something significant and was not going to perform it. Then she got what she wanted, he said. Whatever she asked for, she got it. Lily pressed her lips together. Yes, she said. She did. They stayed on the phone without talking for another minute. It was enough. The thing that nobody tells you about the aftermath of a crisis is that it doesn't end in a single moment. There is no scene where everything resolves and everyone knows they are resolved and the music comes up and the credits arrive. Real aftermath is slower and less cinematic and considerably more work. It looks like phone calls and paperwork and a 7-year-old adjusting to a new school and a woman learning to let certain things be handled and a young woman going through documents at a kitchen table on a Tuesday morning and a man sitting in an office rebuilding an organizational structure from first principles. It looks like ordinary life reasserting itself over the extraordinary thing. Clara's life looked like this 3 shifts a week that became 4 when the restaurant expanded its lunch service in March. Marcus flourishing at the new school with a speed that surprised Clara and probably should not have the gas bill paid and the heat reliable and the specific anxiety that had lived in her chest about the utility company becoming one of those things that you only notice when it's gone because its absence changes the weight of everything around it. It looked like Lily appearing at the kitchen table with increasing frequency, sometimes with a reason and sometimes without one, fitting herself into the apartment with the ease of someone who has decided she belongs there and has stopped asking permission for it. It looked like Marcus explaining the ongoing submarine project to Lily with the same detailed intensity he brought to everything, and Lily listening with the same real attention she had given it from the beginning. It looked like the 3 of them eating dinner on a Wednesday night, because Lily had been there, and it was dinner time, and nobody had said out loud that this was becoming a thing, because saying it out loud was not the kind of thing any of them did. It looked like Adrian. Not every day. Not in a way that reorganized her life before she had agreed to its reorganization. But present and real, and in possession of the specific quality of attention that she was learning to receive, without deflecting it, which was harder than she had expected, and more worth it than she had allowed herself to anticipate. He showed up on a Tuesday night in March with groceries because she had mentioned she was going to be late getting home, and he had done the math and arrived at the conclusion that dinner should be handled. He did not announce this. He knocked on the door at 6:30 and had 2 bags, and Marcus let him in because Marcus had recently decided that Adrian was acceptable and had communicated this by beginning to address him by name rather than by job title, which was Marcus's version of a formal endorsement. Clara came home at 7 to find Adrian at her stove and Marcus at the kitchen table explaining the physics of suspension bridges to him with a diagram he had drawn on the back of a paper bag, and Adrian listening to the explanation with the same quality of attention he gave to everything that mattered to him. She stood in the doorway for a moment. She took it in. Then she put down her bag and washed her hands and said, "What are we making?" And Adrian said, "Pasta." And Marcus said, "Again." And Clara said, "Pasta is a valid dinner regardless of frequency." And Marcus said, "That is what you always say." And Adrian said, "He has a point." And Clara said, "You don't get to take his side yet." And Adrian said, "I'm working on the jurisdiction." And Marcus said with the serenity of someone who has quietly won a long campaign, "I told you." Datite. In April, Lily did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She enrolled in a course. Not full-time, not a formal degree program. A single course at a community organization that worked with recently placed foster children and young adults who had aged out of the system. It was a facilitation training, the kind of thing that taught you how to run groups and manage conversations and hold space for people who were working through large things. She told Clara first. Not Adrian, Clara first. "I thought about what you said," she said. "About doing the next thing. About not making permanent decisions before you have enough information." She looked at her coffee. "I've been thinking about what I would have needed. When I was running. When I was in that alley. Not just someone to warm me up and feed me, but someone who understood the specific thing, the specific shape of what it feels like to question whether you belong, whether the love you received was real or just performed." She looked up. "I know what that feels like from the inside. I know it in a specific way. I thought maybe that was worth something." Clara looked at her for a long moment. "It's worth a lot," she said. "It might be nothing," Lily said. "It might be a course I take and then don't do anything with." "It might be," Clara said. "That's okay too." "You're not going to tell me it's a great idea," Lily said. "I think it's a great idea," Clara said. "I'm also not going to tell you that because you didn't come here for my opinion. You came here because you made a decision and you wanted to say it out loud to someone who would hear it without making it into a thing." Lily stared at her. "That's exactly right," she said. "How did you—" "I have a 7-year-old, Clara said. "I know what it looks like when someone needs to say something out loud to make it real." Lily looked at her. "Thank you," she said. "Not for this specifically, for all of it. From the beginning." "Don't," Clara said. "I'm going to," Lily said. "You found me in an alley and you didn't have to. You stood between me and the most dangerous version of my brother and you didn't have to. You made me oatmeal and you told me the truth and you never made me feel like a problem to be managed." She held Clara's gaze. "You are the reason any of the rest of this happened. You know that." Clara looked at the table. "I was there," she said. "That's all." "No," Lily said. "Not all. Not even close to all." She reached across the table and put her hand over Clara's. "You chose to be there. Every step of it was a choice. You keep saying you just did the thing. But you chose to do the thing every time. That's not nothing. That's everything." The kitchen was very quiet. Clara's hand did not move away from under Lily's. "Okay," she said finally, very quietly. "Okay," Lily said. They sat like that for a minute. Then Clara said, "Tell me about the course. What does the training look like?" And Lily told her. The last thing happened in May, on an ordinary Saturday afternoon that was warm enough to have windows open the first window open day of the year, which in New York carries a specific emotional charge that is difficult to explain to people who have not survived a New York winter. Something about earned warmth, about the air, being different, about the city sounding different when there's no glass between you and it. They were all at the Westchester house. This had happened gradually, the way all the real things had happened, not as a decision anyone made out loud, but as a series of small moments that accumulated into a fact. Clara and Marcus had been out to the house in February once for dinner. In March twice. In April it had become a regular Saturday thing, and at some point in April Marcus had identified a particular spot in the backyard, which was large and well kept, and entirely unlike anything he had ever had access to before, as a location that was relevant to the submarine project, and had begun conducting what he described as research there, which appeared to involve digging a small hole and then reconsidering the hole and then filling it in again. No one had said this was a family thing. It had become one anyway. On this particular Saturday in May, Adrian was on the phone in the kitchen dealing with something that had come up: Marcus Cole. The adult one had found a detail in the financial reconstruction that required a decision, and the decision could not wait until Monday. Clara was on the porch with a book she was not reading because the afternoon was too warm and too specific to give to fiction. Lily was inside doing something that involved the large table in the dining room and a spread of papers from her course. Marcus, the 7-year-old. The one who had opinions about submarines and principles, and the jurisdiction of pastry, came around the side of the house from the backyard, with dirt on both knees, and a stick in his hand that appeared to be serving some structural purpose in an argument he was having internally. He stopped when he reached Clara on the porch. He looked at the house, at the large door and the windows with the afternoon light in them, and the yard behind him, and the specific quality of the day. "Mom," he said. "Yeah," she said, not looking up from the book she wasn't reading. "Are we going to stay here?" he said. Clara looked up. Marcus was looking at the house with the straightforward curiosity of someone asking a logistical question. But underneath that, because he was 7 and 7-year-olds are sometimes more perceptive than they have language, for there was something else. Something that was checking. Making sure. The way children periodically need to check the architecture of their lives. Clara looked at her son. She thought about a Tuesday night in February, and a sound in an alley, and the choice she had made, and all the choices that had followed from it, each one. Building on the last each one made in real time, without a complete picture of what was being built. She looked at the house. She looked at her son. "I think so," she said. "Yeah, I think we are." Marcus processed this. "Okay," he said. He went back to the yard. Clara watched him go. Then she looked at the door of the house through which she could see at some distance Adrian standing in the kitchen with the phone to his ear, and the specific posture of someone managing a problem with the practiced precision of someone who has been managing problems for a very long time. He looked up. He saw her through the door. He held her gaze for a moment. She held it back. Then he returned to the phone call, and she returned to the book she wasn't reading, and the afternoon continued warm and specific, and entirely itself. This is what it came to in the end. Not a grand resolution. Not a speech or a ceremony or a moment with a clear border around it that said, "Here, this is where the story finished." Life does not work in clear borders, and honest stories know better than to pretend otherwise. What it came to was this. A woman who made $11 an hour had stopped in an alley in February because she heard a sound she recognized, not the sound of danger, not the sound of trouble, but the specific sound of someone who had stopped expecting anyone to answer. She had answered. What followed from that single choice, that one moment of choosing not to walk past, was something that could not have been designed, could not have been predicted, could not have been planned by anyone, including the man who had planned almost everything and still failed to account for it. Victor Hale had spent 5 years building a structure on the assumption that love was a liability, that the people who chose each other were weaker than the people who positioned themselves, that loyalty was a performance and family was a word that powerful men used to manage the people around them, and that the truth underneath all of it was that everyone was ultimately alone and operating in their own interest. He had been wrong, not because people are good. People are complicated and afraid and capable of tremendous cruelty and tremendous kindness in the same lifetime, sometimes in the same afternoon. He had been wrong not about people in the abstract, but about the specific people in this specific story, about a 22-year-old who ran from a piece of paper and ended up being found by a woman who had no reason to find her, about a woman who made the smallest possible choice in a dark alley and did not understand for weeks what she had set in motion about a man who had known his sister was adopted for 3 years and had considered the information irrelevant because his definition of family was something he had built at 16 in the rain and had never once reconsidered. Family is not something you inherit. It is something you choose. Adrian had said that at 16, before he knew anything about anything, before he had the vocabulary for what he was articulating. Standing in the rain, with his hand out to a small girl who looked up at him with serious dark eyes. It had taken him 25 years, and a manufactured crisis, and a restaurant worker on Forsyth Street, and 11 weeks of rebuilding his organization, and a Saturday morning in a bakery to understand that the sentence he had said at 16 was not the beginning of the story. It was the whole story. Everything before and after was just the evidence. Lily Romano enrolled in her facilitation training, and in the first session when the facilitator asked the group to introduce themselves and say one thing that had brought them to this work, she said, "I know what it feels like to doubt whether you belong to your own life, and I think that knowledge is the only thing I have that's worth anything to someone else who's feeling it." Marcus Bennett started his new school and was within 6 weeks attempting to recruit 3 other students into a submarine engineering collective. The teacher found this admirable. Clara found it exhausting and also correct. Clara Bennett received in May a formal letter from the district attorney's office confirming that the fabricated records in her name had been fully expunged and that she bore no liability of any kind in connection with any matter referenced in those records. She read the letter twice and then put it in the folder where she kept important documents next to Marcus's birth certificate and her lease and the receipt from the gas company showing a zero balance, and she closed the folder. Adrian Romano spent 11 weeks rebuilding what had been bent and found at the end of it that what he was standing on was more solid than what he had been standing on before, not because the crisis had improved it, but because the crisis had shown him exactly where the genuine load-bearing elements were, and he had reinforced them specifically. He sat with Marcus Cole in his office on a Thursday afternoon in May and said, "The organization is stable," and Marcus said yes, and there was a particular quality to that. Yes, not relief, not triumph, just the settled acknowledgement of a thing that was true and had been arrived at through work. "One more thing," Marcus said before he left. "What?" Adrian said. "The Forsyth Street apartment," Marcus said. "The lease is coming up in July." Adrian looked at him. "I thought you should know," Marcus said with perfect neutrality in case it was relevant to any planning. Adrian said nothing. Marcus left. Adrian sat in his office for a moment. Then he picked up his phone. He called Clara. She answered on the second ring. "Your lease," he said. "It's coming up." A pause. Then, "That was fast," she said. "Your intelligence network is very thorough." "It's useful," he said. "Is this the complicated conversation part 2? She said. "It might be," he said. 7:15, she said. "Tonight." "I'll be there," he said. He put the phone down. He looked out the window at the city that did not know what had happened inside it in February and did not care, and kept going, regardless the way cities do, the way life does, the way all the real things do, not because they are indifferent, but because continuation is the only form that love and loss and choice and consequence can finally take. Not your blood someone had written intending it as a wound. They had been right about the blood. They had been completely wrong about everything else. Family is not something you inherit. It is something you choose again and again in February alleys and kitchen tables and rainy driveways and Saturday bakeries and all the ordinary places where the real decisions get made, not in the dramatic moments, but in the quiet ones, the ones that don't announce themselves as turning points until long after the turn has been completed. Clara Bennett had stopped in an alley because she heard a sound she recognized. That was the whole of it. That was the everything of it. And from that one moment, that one small, ordinary, unremarkable act of stopping, instead of walking past everything else, had followed exactly as it should, exactly as it was always going to, once someone made the choice to be there.